one of my babies. Women's there is another member whose term is up at the end of the month, although I think he thought it was last month. And he decided not to apply for the replacement. So they're like up in the next 2 days. It's like you can get a new chair right now. They can get a pool. Like I am off. You can't. No, I actually intentionally said I do not want to CACT. Oh, if you join the thing, or you join council from the board, yeah, you shouldn't be. Although I was on the thing, by the housing exhibition. But I was only yeah, see, I was there 5 years in the chair, so I was a bit more involved. Why are we here? But the chair comes back and it's like there's a new chair. It's like, no, it's just.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Yeah, I think it's still out of commission. Yeah, it's still not working for me.
Anywhere, you don't have any data?
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
like my husband had
Like, you can't even move these chairs.
I want to put in for a butt cushion for the ones upstairs there so that I
You know,
can,
I mean,
no. Yeah, no, all people,
You're probably the
Like,
reason
is my phone messed up? And then I drove by Verizon store just
yeah.
like,
it's too tall. It's good for the judge, but it makes us sort of
Some
unapproachable.
of it is
With the little kid table.
Yes, and the
The
monitors
table up
don't
here?
help.
and they stick up.
Matt sat down
They
and was
don't
like,
help
is this table
either.
high or the chair's low?
It's
stuff in the fridge. I don't know.
Google Maps up.
Switch away to,
And Gary, you said Gary's joining us?
Where are we talking
we're
about?
gonna look at it first.
He's, no, he's here. And then we go to you to get
Office earlier. Yeah, right. That's good. A good practical use of that function.
Yeah, step out.
Phil, you make it into every picture. You were in the Stratford picture. You were.
Tim is in, where was
I know Tim used to be, but you're like, I don't know.
there? Tim's
You're
not
in
only
there.
there, but he's tall, so.
Right, every
he's
event.
like-
At least you're photogenic.
I have to wear bright colors in order to be noticed, but Tim like towers over
They
everyone.
at least giving out free beers at that thing.
No, you meant sailed. I get it.
They're the alternative, right? Oh, it isn't so bad.
Tim in the picture, it looks like we're trying to recruit for a basketball program.
All right. We want to call to order or you want to eat first?
I'm fine to do both.
I'll wait till.
Yeah.
Can't do anything without me.
Prudent.
I was gonna say, when this back this week? In case I forgot who I was.
I know, it's just enough time that I forgot what I ordered, so this is a nice surprise.
Surprised dinner.
I got the bacon turkey Bravo. I'm not that hungry. I should save it for next. Should save it for lunch.
First part, you need to bring up the presentation.
What are we doing for drinks? I couldn't find a link.
I think maybe people are grabbing it. I don't know, I just brought water.
Is I supposed to bring a drink? Is that or drinks? Was I supposed to bring a drink?
I made,
Water?
It's okay, I'll get it.
this is the second time I made my.
Oh, really? And
There used to be. I don't know if they're still there, they probably aren't.
for once I didn't.
Check the fridge.
For once I didn't bring any.
Wasn't much in there. I grabbed the 0 sugar fruit splash
Oh, I
ginger
went
cherry
downstairs and
ginger
like
ale.
almost everything's sold out.
Just
Before I know
fixed
it.
lot of
That's pretty big. That was the only one that was in there. That was, so he's,
Yeah.
yeah.
In a hurry.
So he's, yeah,
Yeah, really.
never heard of that.
All right, are we ready? Jack, are you good? All right. Let's call the January 14th, 2026 Planning Commission advance to order. Jack, you want to call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Polinsky? Here. Mr. Duncan?
Here?
Mr. Krasner,
Here?
Chair Comont,
I'm here.
Stevens,
Here.
Ms. Friedlander,
Here.
and Mr. Kravinsky.
Here.
Thank you. Quorum?
Awesome. Does anybody happen to have the agenda? I realized I don't actually have the agenda. I thought this was,
Pull it up.
this was it. Let me log on.
Okay, you want to sit here? Sure.
Yeah.
I know that there's
Got
no
room, Gary.
outlets.
You gonna sit by me?
There's plugs
Battery pulled off.
underneath.
Oh, yes.
No, man, I need
Yeah,
it too
you
much.
had 2 chairs.
There's one right down here, Gary. You can sit. Nice to-
I'm just gonna go with
Sit on the.
Yeah.
You gonna be here? No.
Okay. All right, I think next we need a motion to adopt tonight's agenda. Any edits, changes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to adopt the agenda?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to receipt of petitions. Do we have a summary of written correspondence? We have no public comment tonight, is that correct? It's a work
Jack?
session.
That's
Public
correct. Yeah,
comment?
there's no in-person comment period for the advance. There were also no written petitions for the meeting.
Okay, that's easy. So that brings us to the advance. I think we are turning it over to you, Mr. McKeever, is that right?
That's right. Jack, could you bring up the presentation and I'm going to skip around a few slides, but we wanted to do, I think you all should have this handout that we just distributed tonight. We want to obviously spend some time and kind of go over the presentation that was posted last week. Any clarifying questions, we'd like to kind of get those out of the way first. And then what we have in store are 3 exercises that I think will allow everyone to participate, but also solicit, I think, some helpful feedback for our benefit as we kind of test the way we are capturing priorities, the way in which we're signaling the importance of some of these items, but also kind of get your thoughts. A lot of these are not brand new items. You've been looking at them for a while. And part of what lies ahead for the planning division and others that are helping us is, scoping and initiating some of these efforts. And we want to make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of what they're meant to accomplish. So if we are not in agreement on the destination, the journey will be very bumpy. And part of that, I think, is a helpful conversation tonight to make sure that, particularly on one item in particular, we are heading in the same direction. So once we get through the presentation and the clarifying questions, the plan is to break out into 3 groups. There are no assigned seats, but we want to make sure that staff is joining each group. It can help to take some notes. One of the commission members would be the spokesperson or representative to report out as you go through some of these exercises. And we are also, particularly for exercise 3, making sure we want to evenly distribute folks who have some broader knowledge of the Strong Towns concept and framework. So if everybody's very familiar with them, ignore what I just said. But if you're not, make sure you have somebody in your group that is. That'll help the conversation. We're going to try to fit this in the 2-hour window, but I also want to make sure we have a productive conversation. So if some of the exercises go a little bit longer, I'm more than willing to extend the time to make sure we get to a good outcome. There's no shot clock here. We're not going to get penalized if we stay a few minutes late. So just want to put everybody at ease. Any questions before we go forward? Okay. All right, so Jack, could you slide down to slide number 4 for me? What I wanted to emphasize, go up one, there we go, is the current structure of the department within which the planning division is located. This is a very busy graphic, a little bit blurry in that scale, but what it helps to identify are all of our internal partners that in some shape or form are directly related to helping us achieve every annual work program. CPEDS covers a lot of ground, everything from establishing the vision, helping realize it, working with all the various stakeholders, inspect properties, work to make sure we get tenants in buildings. So A to Z, you name it, this department is in a very visible position and carries a lot of critical functionality. So the slide here is intended to highlight what the grouping is, how we are organized. Sometimes it's been a while since we've had a clean org chart, so we wanted to make sure the most current version could be out there. I did want to point out that at the very top, you'll notice we are currently without a director, which is and will continue to present challenges from a work program perspective because that position carries a lot of responsibility. It is the glue between the 4 divisions that make up the department, and it serves as a critical liaison to the business community, development community, and others. And in that absence, the 4 division leads and other staff are doing their best to jump in and kind of fill in where possible, but that position is a full-time position for a reason. And I think the 4 division leads are very mindful of not departing from their other responsibilities and the very staff that they have to support as well. So this, I'm sure, is going to come up in the upcoming budget process. I suspect there may be an annual question we have to ask, but we're going to keep highlighting it because in our opinion, it really needs to come back. And it will have some direct, some indirect impacts on our work program. So we're going to adapt either way, but I want to make sure we highlight that. If we go down to the next slide, it's also important to highlight all the various responsibilities that the planning division in particular maintains in our regular coordination with very significant amount of external groups. And the reason we are highlighting that is because a lot of this engagement, coordination, and support doesn't quite elevate to the level of a work program graphic. So the things we're going to be looking at, they kind of gloss over this in some ways, but it does make up for a huge chunk of staff resources and our bandwidth. And it's something that in many cases we are required to fulfill in staff. And anything we consider in our work program is in addition to these responsibilities. So this is, again, a healthy reminder of where we are. The next slide I wanted to focus on is number 7, which is where were we this time last year? So this graphic should be very familiar to everybody. This is kind of with Gary's help at the beginning of 2025. We're trying to figure out what can we actually tackle. And you can see the format, I think, works really well in the first row being those routine assignments and the work that's mandated by us in support of various groups and committees and boards and commissions. And only after that can we start to think about, between these 5 different umbrellas, zoning, environmental planning, transportation, current planning, and long-range planning, what else can we accomplish in a calendar year? So last year, this was the kind of anticipation and forecast, with the final row kind of beginning to think about, okay, if we don't get to something in 2025, what could 2026 begin to address? So things that maybe were identified as priorities but didn't quite make the cut, but we're not ignoring them and we're trying to track them moving forward. So compared this snapshot to the next slide, which is what did actually come off this list as the planning team progressed through 2025, which, as you can see here, there's a lot of blank cells. It was quite a productive year. Some of these things are wrapping up this month, next month, but a lot of things came off, which is great. At the same time, we're looking at those blank cells, particularly in some of these key columns, as a clear signal of where our bandwidth is. So if we are adding new items for 2026, where do they have to be distributed? Right? Bandwidth is everything, given that a lot of these efforts, and with the upcoming budget, we are not likely to get any consultant services from what I'm seeing. We may, but we're not expecting it. So this work program assumes this is all done in-house by staff. All right, so with that in mind, I also wanted to highlight, we can probably go by order now, to slide 10 maybe. Even though things came off, if you go one more, there we go. There are some ongoing projects. And again, the reason we're highlighting this, I'll use Stratford as an example. From a public perspective, that project is done. From our perspective, there's still some inspections that have to happen. The as-bills have to be reviewed. There's a lot of small, low-hanging fruit, very specific details that we are required to approve and issue before a final certificate of occupancy can be set aside for that project. So, from our perspective, it's not quite complete, and it's still carrying over into this year's work program. And that would be true for any other project, especially the transportation and environmental ones, which are ongoing. There is, in some cases, not really a deadline or an endpoint. They're going to continue. So, knowing that, right, what are we bringing over from 2025 into this year? What we wanted to highlight next, on the next slide, are what was our thinking in developing the work program. So we've had several internal sessions. We brought in our partners from economic development, from zoning, and really try to brainstorm, how best to tackle this. And in the next slide, we start to give you a sense of what did that analysis and practice include. There were some kind of fundamental considerations that were elevated in terms of whatever happens, whatever we're working on, these things have to be included or incorporated in there. I'm not going to read each one, but it kind of gives you a sense of our logic and how we got to the final slides in the presentation. The next slide talks about how our work has to still correlate and relate to the council's priorities. For the time being, we are assuming that many of those priorities are going to continue to have similar themes, even though we are due for an update that will kind of tackle 2026 and 2027. Again, another 2-year cycle, now that we completed 2024 and 2025. So for the most part, what we're trying to do is compare the potential work program items to some of these key categories of environmental planning, transportation, economic development, and housing. So again, a lot of what we feel like we should be working on should have a direct relationship to those priorities. As we understand, we have to keep delivering on those as expressed by the council. So, with that in mind, those being the ingredients, the next couple of slides kind of walk you through how we got to the proposal and the recommendation. So, on the next slide, we're kind of carrying the 3 major strategies that inform some of this work. I'll pause here and explain these without going into the next few slides, which detail exactly which one is, but the first one is really being strategic in that a lot of the projects that have been considered, reviewed, approved, and sometimes even built have happened in the absence of a lot of staff. And I think a lot of folks were wearing different hats, making the best of the budget situation we're in. And we got to a good place, but there were some lessons learned along the way, especially with major SE projects, which just require a lot of coordination. Before we get the next SE, we're in a perfect position to kind of look back at the last couple projects and evaluate, are there some lessons learned? Are there some procedures we can update? Have the development community, highlighted some things to us that we can kind of take advantage of for the next project? So a lot of what you're going to see may look like it's happening behind the scenes, but really tries to target the development side of the equation and making sure that anything from the very beginning of projects being filed and the checklist they have to follow, the fees they have to pay, all the way through the development cycle, site plan approval, inspection time, certificate of occupancy issuance. That whole life cycle of the project is going to be under pretty high scrutiny as we kind of verify those lessons learned. The second item on that list is involving kind of a strategic opportunity to not get bogged down with 1 or 2 major efforts and risk everything else just being held up. So can we be nimble and use our resources effectively such that by the time we're through with 2026, we already have a couple of approved initiatives, a couple of wins, as the bigger efforts continue on likely through 2027. Some of the things we're going to look at, and there's kind of a struggle to demonstrate them graphically, they're not going to cleanly begin in January and end December. And then you guys have all experienced that, I don't have to tell you this, but we are being mindful that expectations are set such that there's at least 2 or 3 items we're going to get into that do bleed into 2027. And then finally, how do we respond to new priorities that this time last year perhaps were not on everybody's radar? The 2 biggest ones being Virginia Village, and again, some of the follow-up work to the Gordon Road Triangle. So both of those would mean a couple different things. They're still in the scoping stage, but we can't fully utilize all of our bandwidth on everything else and not leave any room for those priorities. So with that, Jack, you could probably skip to slide 18, which is the recommendation itself. So this is where, again, using the same format as last year, same categories and color coding, we've tried to populate and really synthesize what we've been hearing from this commission, from the council, from the community, and strategically figure out where do things belong in the broader picture of what we can accomplish in the calendar year. So for this one, and we can always come back to this, we'll have it up during the exercises, but this is our recommendation for how do we start a lot of these efforts and hopefully have some conclude either by this summer or by the end of the year, while, if you go to the next slide, expecting some of them to continue into 2027. And this slide is kind of like our traditional board where we're just laying out things we know we need to do, but we can't get to this year. So we want to keep track of those, and I suspect during the course of this conversation and some other ones, we're going to keep adding to this list. So that's what we wanted to cover to set the stage. I think we have time for a few clarifying questions, but if not, we can jump into the exercises. So I just want to stop there.
All right, any questions from the group?
Yeah, just curious, where would something like the planning for the North Washington Street, the $22 million grant that we got? I know that's for the CIP, but I'm just wondering, is that something that you work into your workload plans? And if so, where would that pop up?
So some of that falls into the transportation planning column where both Carrie and Jenna are regularly involved with our colleagues in DPW. There's a lot of coordination whenever grants like that come in, and we try to figure out when is the best time to pencil that into the work program. Right now, I think a lot of resources are going right into the budget and the CIP development. So it's probably clear that until those things get resolved and come to their natural stopping point, late springish, we might be able to address those things a little bit better. But we're also, part of the effort here is to utilize our resources as best as we can. And it's not going to be uncommon for transportation staff to also get pulled into some of the other land use related projects because there's a lot of overlapping themes. And that's going to have to also factor into, can those same resources have the bandwidth to address that? And at the same time, something we don't have on the screen, or staff here to answer, what is the same equation from a bandwidth perspective on the DPW side?
Yeah.
So kind of who's leading, who's supporting, and then how much time do we have?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'll call it Jim's position, but the vacant position, the director of CPEDS. I understand, I think, why that decision was made to keep it vacant. My understanding was it was actually completely being removed. Is it still sort of being held out there as a vacant position?
So the way we labeled it here was vacant and unfunded.
Right.
So the debate I think we need to have, did that happen in perpetuity? Or that was a 2025 decision to get us through the
Right.
financial gap.
Understand.
And I think people may have opinions on that. From a staff's perspective,
Yeah.
budgets have kind of an annual timeline.
Well, it's interesting to hear from the staff perspective. I get, I understand the budget constraints that probably led to that decision. And it's always easier to deal with a vacant position than something that has a person in it. But so it's interesting to hear staff's perspective that you're finding that the lack of coordination maybe that and not having someone in that role. I was under the understanding that some of the deputy city managers, or maybe at least one of the deputy city managers, was trying to fill that a little bit. Is that happening, or is that part of their responsibility? Or maybe not officially, but...
Some of it, I think, is not clearly defined, but
Yeah.
we're also simply just responding to an incredibly busy year. 2025 alone, with all the capital projects and everything else that I think key individuals in the city were either responsible for or were asked to solve. There's only so many hours in a week.
Yeah.
And I think the experiment that we're living through is that we're going to pretty quickly figure out if other people that have full-time jobs of their own, can they absorb the responsibilities that the director had? Or
Right.
does that position actually need to have a full body in there 40 hours a week to do that work? So I think we're actively living through that experience.
Okay, just, I mean, it's interesting to hear your staff's perspective. I mean, it's still relatively fresh change, the transition is hard, but, I mean, I certainly, obviously budgets aside, I think there was merit in having somebody, who's involved in all the sort of building-related stuff, which is common in a lot of jurisdictions. You do have someone that tries to bring those disparate kind of professions or disciplines together so that you do have like a shared mission and you're sort of on the same page. So I hear you on that. It is hard.
And then some of it, just to give you a flavor, is I'm not sure there's actually any project that is able to avoid this, but as they get close to their finish line, you either have townhomes that are getting ready to occupy their units, people have expecting move-in dates, they've set up their lives to get in there, or you have, the commercial spaces that have grand openings in mind that they've made commitments to. In every jurisdiction, we're not unique to this, there's going to be natural obstacles and challenges to get you there. The way to do that, somebody needs to be a liaison that can understand some of the zoning parameters, some of the DPW engineering issues, building safety, some planning background, how did this issue even come about? So that takes a very special DNA, and also a resource piece. I don't think it's a matter of time, but time is something we clearly don't have. I mean, if you look at some of the folks' schedules, people are doing a lot more than 40 hours a week.
Right.
And there's just so many things going on in the city. At some point, something's going to have to give.
I'd like to point out that there's also projects beyond the city that you guys get involved with.
Right, regional, yeah.
Regional, and also even like Shreve Haycock Fairfax is running it, but we care about that one.
Yeah.
It's resources.
I know you said clarifying questions, but I don't know if it's a substantive question, but I was kind of surprised to see the environment chapter on it. Do you have background on that, or is that something we're going to get into later?
I can clarify it. So one thing we've learned in the fall of last year is that there was a very technical update that is required of that chapter because it's currently missing a couple of technical maps and some narrative that accompanies it. State or some other jurisdiction is actually required update to be completed by June of this year.
Understood.
So as a way to fulfill that, because we're required to do so, planning staff and DPW staff are coordinating on, which maps are they? Can we do them in-house? Can somebody else do them for us? And then strategically and surgically, how do we update that chapter just to meet that requirement? Because we're not opening up the entire document to
Right.
review. It's
Okay.
really just to meet the requirement.
I'm sorry, what chapter is that?
The environment chapter, which was passed in 2020. That helps. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right.
All right, who's ready for work? So what we wanted to do for the interactive portion of this is actually kind of close to the time. Break out into 3 groups. It's up to you how you want to separate. Myself, Gary, and Jack will join each of the groups. We can help take some notes, but it would be helpful and preferred if one of the commission members would be the spokesperson. And what we're going to do, as you can see in the handout, spend 10 minutes on one question, and another 10 minutes on another question, and then have 5 minutes to have somebody recap of what that group came up with. And the purpose is really to obviously inform staff. We're really looking for your feedback here, but also kind of educate ourselves, because some of these questions we may have very different perspectives on. And highlighting that is actually very healthy, particularly when we get to some of the scoping questions and the direction we want to take with the work program. So that's my way of saying there's no wrong answer. Right, so no stress, we can enjoy this. And then finally, at the end, in response to some requests we received, we actually carved out some time for what we're considering a housing-ready audit. So using a couple principles from the Strong Towns organization, we're posing some critical questions about potentially what could happen in the subsequent work program, where we believe there are some specific zoning or policy issues that maybe are getting in the way of housing production. Could we start to take a closer look at those? So this is kind of our way of synthesizing some of the principles, but doing it in a productive way that actually relates back to our work program. So hopefully we're accomplishing both things with one exercise. Any questions on that?
I don't have any questions, but I think we also did, I think in this meeting, want to discuss the 2 council questions in that survey.
Sorry, okay.
Can we make some time for that too?
Sure.
At some point?
And just from a process perspective, and I'll defer to everybody else, but it seems like taking 7 people and splitting them into 3 groups might be, I actually feel as though I'd kind of like to hear what everybody else is saying. And I mean, 2 groups might be a better fit, but I actually would prefer to have a broader discussion with the whole group. Now, if that's, but I'm going to defer to everybody else.
I think that the logic behind 3 groups was it allows us to split into more than just 2 camps, but I think it gives everybody more airtime because I think there's so much time, only so much time we can spend on this. It's already 7. I think if we go with 2 groups, which again, it's your call, will be probably less time for everybody to have an opportunity to share their 2 cents. Threading a needle.
Stick to that 10 minutes and then let's have more time at the end when we're presenting. So that we each can see what everybody else thinks and comment on that.
So it's going to be 10 minutes per exercise. Is that-
So I'll use exercise 1 as an example. Under sub-bullet A, in 3 words, please describe your outlook on the upcoming work program. So first 3 words that come to mind. We'll have 10 minutes for that. Next question is, can you identify any gaps in the work program by surfacing emerging trends or neighborhood concerns that may require proactive planning this year? 10 minutes for that question. And then we have a report out where we get to hear each other. So we can maybe expand the report out, a little bit more airtime for sharing of the ideas outside your group. That could be one way of
I think
tackling
those 3
that.
words really fast.
I don't know, what preferences? I'm kind of with you, actually, that I sort of value hearing from a broader group, but I don't want to bog us down.
And I think I'm with I'd rather split into smaller groups.
You'd rather split into smaller
and sort
groups.
of do what Phil was saying, go faster in the smaller groups and bring it
And then
back to
have
the
a
big,
discussion.
then have a bit broader
Okay.
discussion so that we've got,
So then
Like,
how big should each of they, does everybody else feel that way?
I'm good with the smaller groups, yeah.
Okay. Preference, that's fine.
Kind of ambivalent, but small groups is
Okay,
fine.
so is it like 3 people? You
it's 3, 2, and 2.
3, 3, and 2. Yeah, we are kind of an odd number, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
No, it's 3,
Yeah,
2,
3, and 2.
So I'm
All right.
gonna flip that.
That's bad at math.
We're counting you in there.
No,
It's,
Wander
I
between.
wasn't there, but
we're not assigning any names.
How about we compromise on 2 groups? Would that work better?
That might be better. Yeah. All right, so that's 3 and 4.
Split it down the table?
Yeah.
This way?
Or who should I join? This lovely crew
This side, I guess, I don't have.
over here?
Oh, well, if the
about-
boss is going to join.
It's about 50-50.
You're up.
straight down the middle.
Okay. All right.
I think everybody's going to talk, it's probably half there instead of across the table. I don't know.
I thought we were
I think it's going to be these 3 here,
Okay,
like,
and then
split
us
down the middle.
4.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Got it.
That works.
That's how I understood.
That's the same,
Jack, that's it.
same thing I was
Can you
saying.
be the timekeeper then?
Yeah.
Keep us honest?
All right, ready for some serious safety?
On 3, 2, 3.
Go see if I can.
Okay,
Or I could go get you some.
okay. We're going to do a 5-minute water break.
Yeah.
Duncan's getting,
Yeah, take your time, Phil.
I told him if he could kind of cup
3 words.
my mind, but he still,
Oh.
he's like, I have no cup. He's like, I'll go get it.
I'll look on the board. We just ready to have at it? I've always thought it's ambitious for sure. I
What?
mean, it's, it is amazing with a small staff how much
I agree.
we take on and how much we
Camera?
accomplish. I do
it's
often wonder,
being- taped and audio.
Yeah.
So we're on video and audio or just
Initiatives
audio?
and all these different fronts, knowing
Yeah,
the relatively small size of our staff and how, you know.
And they were on.
They're on, yeah.
multiple directions.
Break up.
Well, you know, with that said, I mean, they've demonstrated a record of being able to do a lot of this stuff, but you do wonder, like, you can only spread yourself so thin.
How
right here.
we want to use the two.
Like, what's your level of
tables at the
confidence?
end.
What was the team's level of confidence in doing what is currently on the
Yeah.
We can certainly do that.
So a lot of it comes down to our second exercise because
Might be easier to do this.
as I've been observing since I got here, there was a certain level of anxiety and intimidation almost on the land use chapter up there.
I know, I'm kidding.
A big monster, oh my God, when will we ever be able to handle it? When should we start it? And
These more?
I think other things were starting to kind of surface instead of that, let's just keep pushing it off.
Were there cups back there?
The way we're asking these questions for exercise two,
I can find
might
something.
be.
What did you say? Sorry. You say veterans downstairs?
But basically, I think it's the questions are geared to, are we sure the scope needs to be this and not that?
So first of all,
I think
so the group is
the way in which
three of you with me?
Come on.
And
Since I got here,
he's gonna hang out, but he's not gonna participate.
Our floating ward.
the
So we
land use
need one
chapter is
person
the
to
document
scribe and then report out,
to go.
and then I can
In
kind
that
of
case, yeah,
help
that's a big elephant
facilitate with the
to
questions.
tackle. That might take some time without consultants,
Okay.
but that's not the case.
All right.
And therefore,
All right.
what is its role?
So we have,
In some ways, it's taken a back seat to the.
We have a scribe.
I mean, in my, you know, observation, just being here for the last, living in town the last
exactly.
15 years, being here for the last, you
All
know,
right.
8 on the commission.
So Tag, you're
I
it.
mean, yeah, I've noticed that. I mean,
All
it's,
right.
and some of it's.
Batted around.
Recognize the importance of that
Then
overarching
from
vision.
there,
Gone by that,
you know, we
yeah, our
have,
existing land use plan is
you
pretty
know,
out of
things
date.
along the lines of the vision set
capturing,
forth in the
like, where we
comprehensive
are
plan.
today.
So it's the long range, which is the
Even though we are small, I
second
think that's probably
column from the
also how we
left.
got away with it, because we're
And
kind
you
of
can
small.
see those there.
Area plans
And if
could
you look
sort
at the
of
bottom, you can see,
place of
you
it,
know,
but,
the
I
blue
agree that it's always a big
is
lift because
the
it's
mandated best
how do you
practices,
integrate that with the area
operating
plans, not just
kinds of
duplicate
things.
what
And
the area
then
plans have.
the council work plan is the
Have to have some
purple.
value in it.
So you can, you know, it's nice,
And,
the
you know,
color,
that's-
you can
so that's
kind of
the
jump around
challenge
by
of it.
each of the
It is
work
a big
program
lift.
columns and see
you
what's
know,
being
maybe
generated out of
big as it would have been
the
without
city
the area
council
plan,
work
so-
plan.
Yeah, and it's in
And
some
then
ways
you
it's a
have the community.
policy decision of like, right, how much do we want to emphasize that? I mean, is council directed, you know,
Action
had made any,
plan items in the green.
you don't get into that
Then
level,
you
I feel
have
like,
some
of
community generated requests that
area
boiled
plan
up
land,
and,
that's kind of foreign to
you know,
them.
came up.
How do you
Tenor Hill's a
learn
good
about it?
example of one.
It hasn't been a thing.
And so then
think the
you
border
have
kind of-
collaboration.
Besides coming
Those
up-
flags on there mean that
Psychologically,
it may be a
we need to
DPW,
different
Department of
approach
Public
than
Works lead on a transportation,
Okay,
maybe
which chapter
improvements
are we
to a
up to?
street and so forth. But
just
we
the
have
whole
some piece of it
premise.
as a planning element.
shouldn't be the question
Maybe
you're
with
posing.
some of the public
It's like, which
outreach
topic
or
is currently
some of the
outdated or
transportation
in need of an
pieces. And
update?
so,
Okay.
so that's what the flags are. It shows that we're collaborating with another
Streetscape
major
environment.
department.
Okay.
And we may or
Found
may
your
not be
item,
the
right?
lead
So
on those.
You've seen too many issues that are
So,
out there.
anyway, so that's kind of the
And
context.
once you
And so,
identify that and you recognize and agree, then you see.
this basically work program
Where is
aims
that
to
guidance
balance
coming?
the available staff
Some cases,
resources,
like 3 different plans.
constrained budget, and then carefully consider
So
the
how do we address
trade-offs
that? 'Cause you can't
of the
update all
council's
3, but
previously
maybe they shouldn't limit it to
defined
3.
priorities, which
Now we have
they'll be
everybody different.
resetting at the end of the month.
Maybe
They'll
starting
have to
with the
start the
topics
discussion on
that
that. So we see that impacting this, you know, in a positive way. We'll be, you know, making some interim changes to this as we go along this year. But this is a calendar year work program, just so you know. So the first question we have is in 3 words.
Um,
Please describe your outlook on the upcoming work program
kind of a
And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, do you see this as
So we were having that
ambitious
conversation
or another,
of having a
you know,
multi-
Right, well, that's a great
verb or
example of how
adjective
that
or so
was not
forth?
included in any of our
So
small area
maybe we
plans.
just go around the table and kind of what,
Mostly not.
looking at this,
So by then having that brought up as like a
what are
zoning
kind of three
amendment,
words
any
that
comp
best
plan,
describe your
guidance,
outlook on this
Our
work
North Star,
program that's coming
so what
out?
happened, I mean, we devolved into this very difficult onerous process.
Well,
You
we
know,
should
that
put
felt
those
backwards.
words
I think
down.
I said that a couple times
The
on the
right
record.
word.
It felt
Oh,
Like, I'm like,
yeah.
well, it is kind of
Because we
necessary.
didn't have
There's
that
a
guidance.
lot
So land expense
of
is
it.
I think-
And we can use those.
for the areas that
fine.
have not been included in the small area plans, and maybe that's how you sort of tailor.
Okay,
focus it,
ambitious.
You know, for the
I
neighborhoods, for, you know, T zones, for areas that were not focused in, you know, it's like
Blue is stuff we,
an economic development play, which is
Yes,
what the area
that's
plans
correct.
sort of were,
And so-
focusing on the commercial corridors. You know, for the
I think it
most
gets
part.
more
You know, that's maybe where it fits. It's still very important. That's maybe how you make it more manageable. Is you know a lot of focuses on
for the
those
tenor,
parts of town.
yeah.
So just to get back to exercise one, because I think the clock started, in 3 words, I think you were closest to us
Be
in terms of
discretionary, is that
reactions.
correct?
3 words.
It
that
has a
come to mind
grant.
When you see that word.
So from a discretionary standpoint,
So you guys-
it's not, in that we've taken the grant.
Help narrow it down.
I think you seconded ambitious.
Thank you.
I would agree with that.
Do you have the staff? Is
Overall, like there's a,
helping staff to do the?
Yes, yeah, we have one full-time environmental
would be
planner.
my answer to that
The
question. Like,
deputy manager Andy used to be in that role, and then we were,
The way that this has been prioritized.
it's being paid for
is
by
each silo
both.
or within each
It's
tower,
actually-
as opposed to being.
On our budget, it's coming out of the city manager's
Ended up
office
in-
still. So it's
and
actually
over,
not funded in CPADs at the moment.
If we had a
because
very
it's kind of
long
a
zoning
carryover from
update
upstairs.
section for
But
whatever, instead of
there
very
is some
short,
funding
long-range
for it
planning,
through the
that was the
grants.
most
And then,
important stuff to do.
of course, the
I'd much
community
prefer us
energy
to go
project is bigger than just one grant.
especially
It has some
with
grant
the
aspects
importance of figuring out the
that
village
are some of the other green up there, so. Anyway, so how about another word?
like regulations or something like that. Like, I
mean,
think there's.
the second
these
was
are prioritized
community.
vertically. as
In
opposed to
this
private.
case, your second word was community,
The idea being
Or
like the
not.
staff members who are going to be the leads on these have.
and ambitious.
Not that there isn't like.
Yeah, I guess that would be my question,
crossover.
and just lack of knowledge on
What
my
you mean
part,
by
but
community?
is there?
I don't know,
The
that's,
word to describe.
Can
Well,
like
community
people who
requests.
Yeah.
work on environmental
Yeah.
planning.
I mean,
If we all decided that Virginia Village, I'm making these up, but like, if that was the most important,
I don't know if that.
can people work on that, or is it like,
Translates
you can't work on
to
that
me.
because that's not really where your area
which is
is?
kind of your outlook on where we're going with this program. I mean, we're saying it's ambitious, it's a lot.
But I see
You know,
almost a kinda-
he's noting potentially, and you don't have to stay with that there's, you know, some community requests, not a lot, but
There's not
that
much
is an additional thing to all the other work we normally do. So that has some impact.
It almost seems like,
I
you know,
think
we've
it's
got
If that's what you
period
meant.
now where it's,
Uh,
I don't want to say
It
quiet.
did. I actually was
Still
just trying to
going on, but
understand what.
on a relative basis, it's just what it's.
Okay. All right.
So that almost seems like it's giving
I think it's, I'm sorry.
more of an opportunity to.
We can bounce around, go ahead.
Responsible plan, only because I'm looking at the long
Yeah,
range.
to both your
planning.
points.
I think
We've been
it's
including
heavy,
footnotes that say,
And it needs
They
to
made it
be
a major
because
SES
I think
file.
we've got the
All
land
this
use
changes.
chapter, and then
so
there's
it's
another
it's
chapter,
like
which is community
intentionally aggressive, maybe
character,
overly,
which is also pretty.
but in recognition of that
and a
gap, we
vision.
don't have an SE in
And we've
front
got
of
all
us.
this
Yeah, that's a good
development
point.
that we're
You know,
thinking
we
about.
are,
and
it is a little
village, so
quieter than it was the
like
last
all of that
5
long range.
to 7 years for sure.
And I think it's a responsible.
And that may continue
plan
for the
in
next
that
year or
regard
two.
to
you know.
Given the
try to
overall
tackle
economy.
Yeah, the economy,
a lot of
uncertainty.
those. I know that the community character
the
should
current
come
federal
out.
administration,
I know we talked about
tax rates, I mean, a lot of the, you know, I mean, as we all know, the real estate market, commercial real estate market is heavily
because
affected
we've got,
by both that
we're
uncertainty,
looking
but
at
also, you know,
rezone-
interest
like
rates,
zoning for
you know,
Virginia Village,
that
and
have got
we've got all these
kicked up to
other
this
big
sort of
redevelopment projects, so I think
so-
it's really
Well, I
important.
think developers, they kind of
Focus
assess, you know,
our
what's
efforts on
the
the long-range
composition of
planning,
your
so I think
council right
it's
now? What's the
well-balanced
likelihood that
Good.
they could get
in terms of-
entitlement through this particular
in terms
council?
of resources.
Maybe they don't perceive
Okay.
it as being
That
quite
makes
as.
sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
A lot of it's
You know,
financing.
just to comment on that, I think
They get the financing.
the mixed-use projects, we're kind of at a little window here where we're on a lull. And so this is a good chance to work on other aspects of the long range
Make the deal work.
and
They
to
don't-
do
most people don't
some,
build
you
stuff
know,
with their own
standard
money, so
operating
they can't get
procedure,
the-
process
get
improvements.
deal to work,
So
they're not
his
doing
plan clearly
Other
tries
than
to take
tennis.
advantage of that window, knowing it could close at any point with a big
Easy.
SE, and all of a sudden, we're now
So
devoting
as we see, those are
resources
going
back.
gangbusters. But, yeah, I think it's an ambitious thing. I think maybe within each silo, it'd be good to prioritize, you know, within that and see if you could whittle it down so you could focus a little more on a few of the top
Phil.
choices in there.
Okay,
And that's my,
go
that was
Yeah,
my
say
thought, like
yeah.
who's doing the prioritization?
Heavy but needs to
Staff
be.
recommendation,
I would
what's
say
the
Skyline going
and
for a good
important.
start.
The council make this decision?
Council is sort of like a council priority, like how are you all?
Responsiveness to community requests.
So we're using this format to.
This is the short list, right? that
Try
we're
the
looking at.
short
The next
list.
slide is sort of like the.
Good start
kind of a-
and heavy but
Things-
needs
The next
to
slide is really what we
carryover.
already know has to wait until
be.
2026.
Yeah.
That's the
There's a bit
final
of a lull in the
Plus
big
things like
development.
land use
There's still
chapters,
quite a
streetscape
lot of work
standards,
to
like,
do.
that's not gonna
Even
Yeah.
finish by this year.
So the words we have so far, we have 5
Small
words,
businesses that are gonna
not
be
prioritized because
coming
we
to us with
are using
proposals and
ambitious use of a
hopefully
hyphen.
bouts of
Unaccomplishable, quiet, ambitious, and
So
aggressive. There are other ways that anybody would describe
encompasses
the 2026 plan, the current plans.
Well, I think it is
stuff, but
prioritized. I mean, like in that, like these are the things
It's
that.
prioritized because in our opinion, we've made the case for how these relate to the 2024, 2025
more on housing generally, too, I
priorities.
would say. I mean,
Nobody's
the
seeing the
utilities up there,
2026,
The
27
26,
priorities.
Field, the whole tax,
I'm kind of monitoring when they show up on the council
watching what
agenda.
happens in Richmond.
And some of us are invited to the council's retreat at the end of the month.
Our approach. in.
That may influence this and evolve it further, but we needed to kind of have a start and
Housing
these are good
heavy or
reality
needs
checks,
to
you know, if something has to come off,
Yes.
so it looks.
No, it needs to have
I
more
also think
You
that
said
if there
housing
is,
items.
I would be open to,
Well,
or be
I don't know
interested in
about items,
prioritization against
effort
what's
put
in here.
into the.
Meaning
Yeah, I
like
mean, particularly
prioritizing zoning updates versus.
Use more on
long-range planning.
housing.
Like, are there
Yeah, I don't-
things, do we want to swarm on something
The
to
field.
try and solve it within this calendar year versus
Yeah.
do a lot on a lot, but have a carryover
And
until
move
next year?
everything
Yeah, we're
forward.
already in B.
Yeah.
I would
Because
anticipate,
part of the,
once the General Assembly is finished with its session, there would be things that.
I understand we don't want to do it all, but
Still not, right?
so.
part of the challenge
In
is
housing
that
in particular.
there are some natural funnels in the review process of these efforts.
Of the summer.
And I think
Okay. I think you
staggering them. with
touched on some items in
final
B,
column, I
so
would say,
we'll get back to that in a moment. So,
The other one, actually.
Because of
one
the funnel that it creates.
the One I listed
Zoning updates.
hard
And
and.
that's as far as I'm going to go.
Okay, so but like if we said, we think the most complete streets, I'm
Go
making this up
ahead,
again,
we've
like
talked
if we
about
pick complete
cottages
streets, we're like,
too,
this
but go
absolutely
back
has to be done
on
this year.
projects
Land use chapter updates could go into next, I mean, I know there are
Buildings
steps to go next year, but like, we should push that out to next year, like,
Even if we just.
we should
talk about it
prioritize
for
within
an hour, like, hey, how'd that work
the
out?
horizontal and prioritize,
some
and
utility
if
to
more
that.
of it ends up in transportation planning and we don't have as much in
Things
long
that
range,
you ask for.
that may be the right answer.
And sometimes this is very
Resources or
helpful
time
because it
to-
forces you to think about if I had to,
All we
let
would
go
like
of
to
something,
do
what would
to
that be?
assess every
And then
single
why?
building that's been put up, but.
So, and we have to be prepared because who knows what next
Look
week,
at
next month.
certain problem points like the delivery question that are.
Sorry, are there other words? Back to.
I had put balanced, just because
Balanced.
it's a very
Design.
broad
They try to
agenda.
future-proof
We're doing work in a lot of different areas.
Buildings around the
I
expectation.
know not all of these
More
projects
of
are
that.
created equal in
For traffic
terms of their
than
level of
traditional.
effort or number of staff involved,
Personal
but
car and park in the garage traffic.
we're making progress in a lot of different areas.
So
So
sort of
that was sort of the case to
some
mind.
emphasis on.
Because it's ongoing, right? I mean, it's just.
Assessing what
Year to year.
we've built and its goods and bads.
Are we at our 10 minutes?
We all agree we're.
I think so. I saw a 2-minute
Yeah.
warning.
But I don't think anybody believes.
Are we at time?
Yeah,
New
I-
development's coming at some point.
of course,
I would steer away from the word lull.
Can you
just
identify any
so
gaps in the
public
work program by
understands the way it
surfacing
works.
emerging trends or neighborhood concerns that may require
No, no, I mean, we've
Wait
just-
for a new 16-story building. you know?
we've just redirected and, you know, we're able to
Parking.
do a little more on
Parking
long range versus
and-
current, but we're still doing a lot on
I
current.
mean, well, parking specifically in my
you know,
neighborhood, but also,
Okay.
So we're at, any final thoughts? Yeah, you want to move on to
I
exercise
think you
B?
need to rename affordable dwelling
yeah,
units, so.
I had, sorry, the fire alarm went off in our house at 4 in the morning, so I'm a
Oh,
little
no.
sleepy. But the, like, the.
I know, yeah, yeah.
Thoroughfares, it's something
Now,
that-
accessory
Yeah, so I
There's the.
Some houses
Yeah.
is different.
Yeah, Washington doesn't happen tonight. I was walked over here.
Also, the East-West bike.
Flip a pizza, to pick up a pizza, and just stopped on Broad
On the
Street.
street.
People stopped on Washington that are just like picking up people. That's what they
But that's
do.
part of.
It happens, I see it.
I get that causes a lot of traffic, and there's a lot of the things I hear from people are pedestrian concerns of
So it's like,
the cars are stopped, so people are swerving and they're getting more aggressive to get around those cars.
Oh, okay.
It is a risk when people are trying to
Bike
cross the
plan
street or over.
implementation, does it
So
include
that's one of the ones I've heard about that's not
so
on this
the
list. I'm
bike
like,
plan.
What is the
Can-
planning solution to
the
that,
first
though? I
set-
mean, or is it like an
can we,
enforcement?
I don't know.
I mean, when we build
I think
buildings,
it's the
we,
East-West
like
bike.
the Broad in Washington was
The newer
built.
ones
The
can
newer ones have
accommodate
those
it, but,
pullouts.
Like,
Yeah.
The older ones.
Is there can it fall in a planning standpoint to say that there's no on-street pickup and that it has to be accounted for in a parking, in an off-street
There's a lot of blocks on.
pickup situation?
There's a lot of crossover.
Most of those places have parking lots.
Yeah, no, I mean,
But I
any
don't know if
new
that's an
development should.
Any new development.
So, but
yeah.
it, to me, it's just like an enforcement issue.
Crosses over to a lot
I mean,
of
it's-
other blocks.
Even if it's not on the work program, and parking does show up there, but I'll mention
And it's
why.
hard to sort of categorize.
There is already ongoing conversation, because I know the council's aware, their manager's office aware.
Yeah, we're on B, so.
It's trickling down, and
Any,
I would imagine
anything that you can think of that's
anything
missing
from signage
from
to
the work.
enforcement to whatever else, the entire toolbox is gonna get thrown in.
And proactive discussion too.
What's not-
You know,
With the
reach out
owners,
to the-
right.
Yeah, all the business
But
The
center.
delivery,
I
you know,
do think
folks,
that land use chapter
on,
is,
okay, far right column,
could be
purple
a
parking
very heavy
requirements.
lift. But it's
That
also
one there,
incredibly
which we'll have more information in the spring, that's addressing, I think, an earlier request that I think may have shown up in previous work programs, but that is the minimum parking requirements.
Yeah, that was more getting,
Yeah, that's fine.
not getting rid of them, but, making them a lot less strict than they are now.
If we keep
Reducing them.
considering waivers and modifications for 20, 30%,
Right.
So.
over and over again,
Right.
that's a
Yeah, that's a
sign.
best
The gaps
practice
are gonna
that we
start
learned
showing
about in our planning commission school, right? If you
Do that land
continue
use
to do the
chapter
same.
right.
Right, waivers and mods, you
Then
should,
you need to
right.
change your
Why do
code.
you have it? And that's very true.
Yeah,
going
so it's a
to-
conversation to have.
it's going to
What
cover
level, if any, we would need for
A
that.
lot of distance.
Parking's always been tricky because, like, again, we kind of have this like split personality. We're urbanizing, but we're not quite urban. A majority of people, many people walk, but it's still a good percentage of people that drive. And so you saw what happened, like when,
Zoning.
like when certain things have opened and whatchamacallit opened a few years back, and we had that parking crunch over
That's
at
a good phrase, say that again. Land use
Kensington.
chapter.
North side.
Northside Social. Yeah, that was a great example of like where we granted a very significant waiver. They basically had like almost
Well, I think
no
it's going to
parking
be a heavy
really
lift,
outside.
and also if you do it right.
And but the point is, then they wound up having
Public
to
parking, we had
having
a
to come in
parking on the
afterwards and
street.
do a bunch of
Show a
mandates.
lot
Like they had
of
some on-street
potential
parking.
gaps
We're gonna deal with the
between-
apartments.
But it's stabilized.
Yeah, it has now.
Yeah, the
You're
market
right.
figures it out.
It does.
And same thing with
Yeah.
La Tangria.
Yeah,
right?
same. You're right. It does. Initially,
So-
something's popular. People, everyone's
Would
like,
you
wants to
extend
get
that
there,
to-
it's
Yeah.
difficult, and then people do
I
sort of
think-
figure it out.
What we might have to, I mean.
My expectation slash worry
Plan
is
process
that
is gonna reveal
those that have been asking us to study that,
desires that some people might have about something that just do not connect with market reality.
academically may
Yes.
believe that
Yes.
this is a simple
I mean,
matter of just reducing
All of
certain
that. I
issues.
think it's going to identify.
I don't think you can do that
And also
effectively without
perhaps
taking the human element
The
out of the
visions,
equation where
character.
the folks that are surrounding these multifamily buildings
That's just tree
are not going to
canopies.
just accept a lower ratio because they already know, some feel already, the impacts of that.
Of the street
Right.
So I don't think you can touch that without
push
touching the
forward
permanent
in
parking.
here when we know that the land use.
And when those two things have to come together, you just extend your timeline.
I think it might
Yeah,
affect
that's a very
that other
delicate,
chapter.
Yeah.
less
So I was
predictable outcome
curious
now.
what the thought
So
process was in.
We'll see.
In ordering those.
Parking is going
That's
to
a
be an
great
issue.
point.
I think the streetscape,
Yeah.
because we just updated that in the spring,
Great for job security.
this is
Yeah,
like the
again, it's easy as a
implementation
planner
part
to
of
sort
it,
of, like, advocate
where it
certain
gets
topics
correlated
that-
to the other things.
Oh, it's
pretty
okay,
trendy,
it's the
but
implementation.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
interesting.
because it's already been done as a policy piece. And so we have to then take that and integrate it into everything. And so it takes some effort and some staff time. It's not a heavy lift, but it is something necessary since we've adopted that
Like a lot
policy.
of spillover of like on-street parking, on public streets.
On that-
Yeah,
on
I've
that-
been a critic
Okay.
of
level,
parking
just
Yes.
to be
I think that's
clear,
gone overboard,
'cause I-
actually,
I-
you know,
Yeah.
in certain areas.
Thank you
I always point to the area near
for
me on Grove, you know, where like in advance of Founder's Row 1, there was so
The
much fear. This is
streetscape
obviously
standards
shows how
and
we've
vision,
evolved a little
oh,
bit. There was so much
chapters,
fear and
that's the
consternation.
implementation.
Oh, no, okay, no, I'm sorry, that
Parking,
is
like the movie
the
theater, for
actual
example,
comp
which
plan chapter,
took a
that
decade
part.
to open,
Oh.
was
Because
gonna
there's another
generate-
one on there.
But all this crazy permit parking,
Let's
like,
see,
there's such a
that's the
huge
vision
radius
chapter. No,
away
that's
from
comp
Founder's Row,
planning.
all the way up Grove,
There
up West
was-
Street, and I never see, you know, like, first of all, there's very little enforcement of it, but I never see it.
Yeah,
It never came to
yeah.
pass. Like, it's
So I was wrong on
never
that.
actually spilled out. People didn't work, you know.
Land use
People
is
don't park
okay, now
like
how do we
that
get
far
there?
away.
All right, here.
That didn't happen, but we had a knee-jerk reaction.
My mistake, my mistake.
Done a lot.
Yeah.
The elephant in that room, the last thing I'll mention on that is,
I think the commission landed on
rental
talking
costs.
about doing the vision character chapter
unbundling, right?
and then the land
Because we
use.
don't control that. I don't think we
would
legally we can
form
enforce anything there.
that approach.
That's fair. I was
Human
stuck on
nature is that
streetscapes.
a lot of
I thought
renters
we
are
were
going to
putting
continue to
that
take their
in front
chances
of not
Yeah.
the vision and the.
because they don't like the price
So
tag.
But I think we have to be
It's not
cautious
included in
about-
their rent. And when, as long as that keeps happening, we're going to have parking debates, and only so much that we can impact.
Okay.
And
I
if
mean,
we
I
don't
think
address it or address it
Right
effectively,
now,
there's also the perception that we're
there's
ignoring
a
the problem.
huge national debate
So-
about land.
At least it has to be acknowledged.
I'm interested to see when these townhouses all come online, how
This
much
is the time
spillover
for-
parking there is up in the neighborhoods because, you know, people, the garages are so tight.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been
They're not
thinking
gonna
about the
fit a lot
unbundling
of
thing,
cars
because
in
that sort
there.
of is like a
Ability
planning
of
best
housing.
practice, right? Like recommending that new buildings do that to sort of
No, I'm in
expose the true
agreement. I
cost
think
of
it needs to
parking.
prioritize.
But you're right that the way that they do it, like maybe it's more,
In June
you bake
or
it into the rent
August,
and you
right? Like,
get a
I feel like
discount
that's-
or
Seems like the
rebate
more-
if you don't have a car.
Definitely gonna slide
You know,
into-
like maybe there is some sort of like psychology to it where the advertisement.
Yes, I mean, it'll be a multi-year
They are unbundled, but I
effort.
think what
I mean, most of our comp plan
What I-
updates
seen too is
take
that, like,
most of a
when it's
year.
unbundled and it's sort
They're
of like you
10 to 12 months.
bill for rent,
And
and
the
then, oh, you have to pay
streetscape
another
standards is part of the
$13, like they're advertising
community
that
character
price
chapter
for the
that also
unit.
has the vision, that would integrate the tree canopy.
People are
That's
less likely
in
to-
progress now, and so
Yeah.
it would all get
They
kind
get
of
one
wrapped
25
into
in,
that.
and, oh,
And that was the,
Chapter
Yeah.
update, not
it's
just.
actually a whole chapter update then.
Okay.
And so that was kind of what was scheduled next,
But-
because we've been doing these internally, because we were able to
Best
with our
practice.
staffing levels, but the land use one is probably
we got away
like
from our
4
question.
chapters in one.
Okay.
So
What other-
that one's a
so
heavy
we talked
lift,
about
so we've got to
parking.
figure out the scoping on that, and then do we need consulting help? Are we gonna try and staff it, and what are we not gonna do?
Not really parking.
And so,
It's not the parking.
that's why it's more in the second half,
The
because
blocking
of
traffic on
the effort just to figure out what we need to do and what the prerequisites are to go and do
Loading, pickup,
it.
drop off.
And so.
Loading, pickup, drop off, and the
Yeah, we're
width of the
teeing it
parking.
up.
That's a good point, Gary.
If you look at a lot of the SE
I'm
development,
assuming
FR2 is not as big a deal, but like FR1 and Washington, there's so much stuff comes out from the building. that You don't have as much walkway, like the new deck at Fish
I don't know if it's
Taco and
worth
like
calling
the
that out
seating at
separately,
Chase Tails.
or
And
it's part of that purple box.
I mean, I think I mean, this is just generic, so yes, that would be one of many things we're looking at, you know, as part of the
This- you
scoping.
can name.
So, I mean, you've
probably
mentioned
10
that
off the top of your head
consistently,
where,
so
like, the sidewalks aren't
it
wide
falls
enough,
in
and
that
then
bubble.
holes
It's
in
just we
sidewalks
haven't
and go.
defined it
So
here.
pedestrian safety is one
So,
that
but
comes
yes,
up.
that's
In the
obviously.
first question, I think we talked about,
Following
it's
what
too
Matt
aggressive,
said
what needs to
earlier,
come off.
One function
Question
I'd
is,
like to see is.
If it wasn't as
make sure we don't
aggressive,
forget
or even if it was,
preferably
topics like that,
prioritize is
and I'm curious if there are any
sort of
others.
closer role that
Needs
he
to be added,
described
maybe
when
something has to
you're
come
dealing
off.
with projects.
Is there something that not showing up there but should?
85% completion and.
I mean, I think you get
last
some of the pedestrian
15%
safety stuff with complete streets and just Sarah
a long time.
will be making
Sometimes
progress
for
through
good
those.
reason, but sometimes just because somebody isn't
Plans.
from the very top saying, we can.
And I think
Anything you guys
also-
were advocating for this time last year that
And
still not
everybody-
Development projects.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Cottage housing.
Well, certainly, but even simple things like
I think we got that information.
Yeah, I saw the one of the questions.
a new business that's opening and needs to get its ABC liquor
different
license.
land
Okay.
use
I'm
for-
talking about.
It's like a
down-
permitting
Yeah,
specific
I'm
zoning
talking
to
about
change
down
it
in
to
the
duplex or
weeds.
to
At, you know,
So
the
the reason-
Multifamily
economic
housing.
development side.
The reason we put cottage housing in 27,
The person's bird dogging.
one of my
Yeah,
first
I mean,
Every little
meetings
action
with
item.
you
that
guys,
needs to be
everybody
done.
understood
Feedback
that
we
that
got,
was Jim Snyder's.
cottage housing should
time
not be done in a
function.
silo in
At the
advance
end,
of the land use
just
chapter.
get everybody
Because there might be
together.
something
Yeah,
we learn
and
from
that's another
that.
thing.
Get a
So it's
temporary
kind of
CO,
staggering
that's what
cottage
it took
housing
to
to
get
the
the thing open so
second
you could have
half of the
ribbon
land use
cutting.
chapter, so they kind of come
And
together.
that still happens, but
Is the land use
Well,
chapter
we're trying to step up to fill, that's a gap for us,
yeah.
preemptively
to
have
be
to fight
frank with
about
you,
this.
Well, that's why I bring
because
it up.
he was very good at that. And,
And Becky does it too,
Um,
but you know.
And then say, no, we're gonna have the big discussion now, or is it?
Oh, yeah.
That will be a
You
cottage
know, the
housing.
mayor has to, the council can get involved.
Or rezoning
One of those
multifamily housing,
things
that we
that
would have the fight.
generally steer clear of that.
Not that it would be fight, maybe everybody will be on the same page.
I don't know about that.
No, there'll be some fights.
That's a third rail, I think, right now. I
It
mean, I
is,
think that's,
but
Mention of
that's
everybody
be a
and
very
how it
contentious
can be minimized.
I
debate.
mean,
Of
from
course,
my
yeah,
selfish
yeah.
perspective, if there are things that live in the small area plans, that fight already took place.
That's it.
And we're simply reconciling the land use
Yeah.
chapter to meet what we believe is the current vision.
That was fun.
It's up there.
So there may be some additional fights where
It's on 27, I think.
if we make that lead.
In the next year.
Is our ways the greatest
I
vision.
think it's, I think.
Does the zoning ordinance speak
There
to
it
that?
is.
There it is.
We need
Is
to
that
really
what
get
the
the land
conflict
use
is in the
dialed
next
in
battle?
before we
Because I think in many cases,
vision, before
there's
we
a natural
go.
It's there
reaction
on the
to
bottom.
use the zoning ordinance.
So you'd
If
be
it's not
okay.
in alignment with the small area
At some
plan,
point,
as a way to basically
I think we promised
stop or
we
reject
look at
certain
accessory
development applications.
dwellings.
It's very convenient and very smart,
or not.
but that was never the
But like a
intent. I think
debrief
it's
or-
one-
Like a year later.
Yeah,
we
has
wanted
anybody
to
put in
to make sure the zoning
applications?
also caught up.
Yeah.
Pretty much applications, when they filed, they also have to
Yeah.
rezone.
But it
Also
doesn't,
really
That's
wants
where we get into
everything, you know, let's go back a year, 18 months and say.
Is this working?
okay,
Asked,
is this
oh,
working?
sorry, go ahead.
So how?
We could-
gaps, guidelines, has this come up in your discussions?
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, so council,
prioritized by the group, the whole
in the
tracking
code that was
system.
approved,
Community
council
character.
included a
Yeah,
note that
community
said they would
character,
review
'cause I think that's
the
a lot
accessory dwelling
of what
ordinance 1 year after it
people
passed.
dislike.
So that would be,
Development.
that'd be in April.
That's a lot of what
Yes,
they
that's something that's already
Feels, how it looks and
Townhouses
feels.
prepared and like will happen.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you put it?
Their architecture or the streetscape?
Well, so that'll be more of a report. So then what comes
both,
out of
but,
that
mostly
discussion,
Mostly the
sort of
architecture. Yeah.
determine,
The other thing
council's
that I'm
discussion
reminded
on it,
of,
how they
I know is
kind
the
of want,
green
what they
building
want to do with the
standards.
data and the report that they're
You
given.
have been an
If
advocate
it's,
for that, I think the last 2 years.
they don't want to, move
So for that
or
one.
do anything with it, then
you'll
we'll have to
notice
see where
in
the
the first
priorities are
column-
in staffing and then schedule it. So
2027.
I think that
Under
one's sort of
2026,
a question mark
we
right now.
have-
Is, the next benchmark is
Onto
scheduled, but then
concessions
what comes after
protocols.
that is what's sort of up
So
in the
again,
air.
in the gap we
Yeah.
have between SC projects, let's go
But
back
there
to
is,
the way we.
there are
written
questions that touch on
and
that in the
ultimately
next
negotiated
exercise.
for some of the voluntary
Accessory dwellings and
concessions.
some of the other,
We're noticing there's a lot of
priorities.
challenges with
So
the
it's,
execution.
it's being tracked and it's going to be benchmarked and
But it is very
assessed.
telling in how
And
we
then from
reach
there,
certain
we'll provide that
negotiations,
information and where it goes from
ability
there.
to reach
It could
some major key
show up on
objectives
here
for the
as
city.
after that, if it becomes
That
more
exercise
involved. But at this
inevitably will
point,
probably
smaller
trigger a
things like that,
conversation
we
about
aren't.
green building
They
standards.
kind of fall in the blue area, one of
Level we
those
want to
bubbles.
achieve as a baseline
So we're
or
not that detailed.
now moving forward on many of the
Good
SC
question.
projects.
But I think I'm hearing that
Form
we
whether
want
or not the
to
green
do
building
that
is-
more consistently.
Warrants its own
And we
effort.
specifically
as a
built it into
follow-up,
that one.
Or if we can get to some type of an agreement or update.
Yeah, I mean,
through the voluntary
like
concessions
Streetscape, we
exercise.
just approved a new policy for
Part
that,
of that
but
is
there's
by
nothing
design
built in to
because
revisit that.
While I keep
But
hearing.
somebody could ask and say, okay, let's take a look at that. It's been a
What are we
year or
actually achieving
whatever.
through that?
Yeah,
And I worry,
Yeah.
as I look at other examples, including
yeah,
Arlington,
those kind of things.
How do we
that
fix
folks
that?
that wear that hat really well advocated almost in a silo where, bars sit so high,
That's how we fix it.
You know,
so price restrictive and likely causes a lot of developments to
broader,
rethink.
how, was the procedures,
So
how do we do all?
Whenever we get to that question, it has to be
Yeah,
done in
part
the
of that
context
block.
of housing
Yeah, it could be built in,
affordability,
yeah.
transportation, park space, everything
Okay.
else.
We're all
There's
in line with the
costs for
prioritization.
developers.
good job.
Maybe some impact on state legislation too, if the General Assembly passes legislation
One gap we identified
permits
was
localities to
potentially
have more flexibility on their buildings,
we want to
green
make
building
sure
codes
that
than what they currently do.
chapter gets tackled
That
in
could generate-
26.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I mean, not to go off another tangent, but there,
27.
tracking state legislation this session is going to be particularly important now with the new governor. I've already seen some.
yeah, I'm not sure I've heard so far anything that
Three-dwelling
was
unit,
truly missing, but there was maybe
bills
some
float
clarification
out
about
there.
timeline?
Have excess
commercial
land.
uses.
Make it easier to.
To allow them to build housing on their, affordable housing on
It's
their
quite
church
a
properties.
landmine because it's causing a lot of communities to
some
essentially, and
bipartisan
they have a
group that
right to
said,
view it
okay,
this way.
What do we want to
The
propose?
fact that it's
for cannabis
a
retail? 'Cause,
religious institution that
young
wants to
people
repurpose their
doing
land
it every
and
year.
kind of meet their broader vision through
Never heard
affordable
that
housing,
she will
supportive housing.
sign it. And there is
The
no
value
opt-out on it.
placed on that and the
So,
importance it has
If that becomes
is,
up to the
in the
local
state's
communities,
potentially
localities to
opinion,
define
greater than any kind of public process to verify if it's actually
I
appropriate
thought
for
it
them.
was.
It's like a blank check to, as long as you're a church and you want to do
I
housing,
didn't now. I see.
let us know
Could I
what you
make
do.
my house a church
you're
for a
anticipating-
flying spaghetti monster
The
and just like
anticipation is
put as many
that-
houses as I want? in my-
We approved something like that between Bailey's and
Because
Seven Corners on
the Assembly
not
was
far
passing
from our
it
border. There's
for
a,
like the last 3
like a
years. And Youngkin
scientist
was
church, there's
vetoing it.
a church along that stretch that
And Bama
came in and got approval to do
doesn't like it.
townhouses and
So-
multifamily.
So
So
the
an
one,
expectation
not the
is
one,
that-
they used to-
We can
Not
set the
should do.
rules.
The problem is right, the
I don't know
intersection
what's
there
gonna
is
happen. But
But in any
it's
event,
sitting
yeah.
out there.
A couple other things that came up, I think, last
didn't
year
see
was
Portage
the city sign ordinance, the BZA.
Oh, yeah, they've requested some
It's
changes.
requested
Hey,
that.
I think it's in
They get
27.
a lot of sign variances.
Yeah,
Sign code is pretty
because,
outdated.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
parked that one for
A
2027.
long list of things that need to be done
You
urgently.
have
That
the
was definitely
ULI
required
piece, but
consulting
now
services.
it's going to start
Um,
cranking up.
And it might be.
Yeah, I
It's gonna
mean,
be a long
Get funding
thing.
for that.
but-
yeah, I mean,
And then
we
the
had
last one was the West End small area.
discussion on today, and we'll be reporting out in the spring on some scoping.
Triangle,
Exactly.
like
So
that whole small
that's
area, like,
happening. Let's see if, yeah, maybe, okay. So let's just call that a gap that
Right.
we don't, I mean,
It's true, is Gordon Road captured in here somewhere? 'Cause I feel like-
Virginia Village is up there on
It's not called that by
27.
name, but
It
it's
should be in
the
there
West
too.
End.
You're listing it as
Yeah.
a priority.
Okay.
The question is,
Virginia Village is there.
we have not made the leap that simply the submission of the ULI.
Well, you guys have it on your
triggers updates to
schedule
the area
already.
plan.
Yeah, we have the ULI
And I
tab
think
that,
that before we begin to have that conversation, there needs to be
and then I
some
think there's a question
additional
about what the next
coordination of the
step
local
might
level
be.
with property owners about.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And we're working on that now as
In terms
a
of your near-term.
team group,
future
you know, we're
plan.
Their taxes
Wouldn't
are
that show up in the
submission,
plan so that
well,
Making
yeah,
those
so
conversations
let's
this year.
make sure it makes it on there, because we're,
Depending on how frequent they are.
we had a meeting talking about it today, staff internally.
Okay, so I got started
So
with
we're,
Gordon Road, cannabis policy.
we're scoping it now and reporting to the manager.
Land
You guys
use,
ready for report out?
Village.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
I'm sure.
you noticed that
I have the notes, I feel like that.
you also talked, yeah, close the roll, and then you talked
Three
about
words
more
in
on
the name,
housing,
not by the way.
as a gap, more on
Phil
housing.
mentioned something about cannabis, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I won't tell you the ones that do.
Everybody has to enjoy it.
Like in DC, you smell it everywhere.
I was in New York and moved last weekend.
New York City is,
All of it.
That's just a resource discussion then.
All right, do you guys want to go first?
we certainly would want to get ahead of that from a zoning perspective. Sure.
Let me stand behind my chair in case I fall over, I'll have that.
Distinguished gentleman from Virginia.
Well, I need to stand because I can't.
His latest
Can't see
post,
around.
Sitting so low, I feel like I'm.
his latest post showed his green, grand opening shirt.
So our three-word exercise yielded heavy and needs to be. Sometimes the offerings are more than one word. Ambitious, but we should try to tackle. Well-balanced, and it pretty well sums it up, I think. It's a good start. The missing, do we want to do the
Yeah,
whole
do we want to
thing?
go back and
Or
ping
go
pong?
back and-
Sure.
Would that
Okay.
be easier from a note-taking perspective?
Which was.
Let's go back, we'll go back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what I got for the early part.
I'm also feel the need to stand, but I don't want to. So we'll just do the 3 words. So we had a lot of words, but they all sort of landed on the same themes, very similar themes to Mr. Duncan was just saying, but ambitious, balanced across all the towers with a full backlog, and ongoing, meaning that this is work that is unlikely to be 2026 only work. Like, this is work that's going to have to keep going. It's very, I think, falls sort of under ambitious as well. There's a lot to do here.
All right, question 2.
Okay, question 2 is what's missing, right? Okay, so bullet points were, council's probably going to have to do something about a cannabis dispensary policy, depending on what the General Assembly does this spring. The Gordon Road Triangle is being worked on, everybody knows, but we didn't see it sort of splashed up here in a way that hooks it to, a timetable for this year, and certainly obviously carrying into many future years. Tackle the land use chapter in the comp plan in 26. The thinking is that it's sort of pushed a little beyond that. We need to get to that sooner. And housing generally, Virginia Village is on there, but really it's not just last year we've sort of spent getting ready to do it. We've been spending many years trying to get ready to do it. So let's try to get really doing it this year and finishing up hopefully next year. Not only Virginia Village, but also just housing policy generally, but again, whatever the legislature does with tax credits or LIHTC or whatever, that whole package of affordable housing. What Matt brought up about what we call the closer role, somebody on staff whose job it is to, when a project reaches 85% or 90% completion, getting that last 10% done seems to be extremely challenging. And usually the big projects involve Jim Snyder, having to go up and walk around with the inspectors and get a temporary CO, and somebody whose job it is to get her done in the closing chapter so you can have your grand opening, have your ribbon cutting, get the business operating and generating revenue. And then go backs, the function of reviewing council's actions on major initiatives like the cottages and anything else that we do accessory dwellings, anything else that we're doing that we want to see a year later how it turned out, and what did we learn from that, and do we need to make changes? We need to be more ambitious. Were we too ambitious? That go back function needs to be sort of built into any significant thing that we do. Okay, I think, is that fair enough? Okay.
I had just one addition to what Phil said. Kravinsky had said that if we're working on the land use chapter, if we do it right, we're going to find gaps. We're going to find broken links. We're going to find the need to work on some zoning, work on some land use. So gaps are going to emerge from that exercise.
That was very insightful.
I'm sorry, yeah, I missed that. I wrote it down. I forgot to talk.
I wrote it down too. We all had it, so.
Cannabis is much more important than that, buddy.
I was immediately drawn by the shiny
Yes,
object.
exactly. Yes. But anyway, thank you, the gentleman from Virginia, yes.
That's the old guy from West Street.
I'll use that again.
Just the cannabis is going to be public comment.
Yeah, oh yeah, it'll be hugely time consuming.
Entertaining public hearing.
Yeah, doesn't that get, once the state decides it, then does Falls Church have to add it?
What I heard is
legality?
That's how they correct the law.
bipartisan thing does not include an opt-out option that they're looking at. So we may have to.
We may have to do something, or we would make it done for us.
I don't know.
All right.
We may have to have
You don't have all the answers right now, just for.
We'll know after the general session.
The left and the really left.
Like the site plan.
Yeah. It'll happen. So for our group, things that were coming up were parking requirements for new developments and parking in general and how that impacts pedestrian safety. both at the new developments and then at existing developments, especially on major thoroughfares. Mr. Stevens brought in a last update of the design guidelines, a hard copy of the last update of design guidelines from 2001 as a thing that might be an opportunity. I think we've seen that a lot, especially with the last 3 townhome developments in T-zones, looking very similar and not looking as maybe modern as we might like them or as unique as we might like them. There were also some discussions around reviewing the previous decision, either leveraging the land use chapter update or somehow corresponding conversations around updates that had previously happened in small area plans that never made it to zoning amendments or zoning changes, so that the current zoning reflects what each of the small area plans also is intending for them to be accounted for. And then we had a follow-up conversation, or we had a conversation about where multifamily zoning would live on rezoning items to multifamily for duplexes and things like that on single-family housing. That was a point of interest, but seemed like it was better suited for a 2027 or 2028 timeline after we had the land use chapter updates and some of the broader conversations that would go on there. I think that's everything. Did I miss anything?
Upzoning, you mean like upzoning from single family
To multifamily.
Duplex,
triplex, something like that.
But the stopping at commercial deliverers, stopping.
Yes, and the first thing I brought up, I forgot about. So the concept of ride share, delivery, pickup, blocking traffic on major thoroughfares, and how that is both a pedestrian concern and a traffic concern. It could be an enforcement issue, it could be a zoning issue, it could be something.
It's a design issue, I mean.
Be a design issue.
Design of future build, we have that too, thanks to art and being an art group.
I will tell you, the CACT was addressing that for the last 4 or 5 years. In the comments back from the CACT, that was raised.
Yeah, it was always very challenging to get developers to go that extra mile to accommodate, ambulance drop-offs and deliveries, and, if they don't, their pretty pictures get goofed up when there's a truck in front of their building, but really, we shouldn't approve anything without the answer to the question is,
Where the truck
where's the Uber and Lyft and the truck and the ambulance go?
Yeah, like even if you've got things like the Stratford or new buildings like, not even just like a Founders Row or Broad and Washington, which have attempted to, but forcing Founders Row to like make the pickup in the parking garage, and that's where the address directs you. That's a separate conversation.
O'Dara, that was their response, is they would have spaces in the garage.
And there are spaces.
There
but no one
are,
uses
but
them.
there's no signage to
Well,
say
yeah,
that.
and the address says park here on West Street or park here on Broad Street.
I had one question about one of your comments. So, what did you say about the multi-use, the multifamily zoning not being part of the land use chapter?
So, as opposed to bringing up a specific conversation in 26, with the prompt being what is missing from the work program, we had brought up the conversation around should multifamily housing or upzoning from single-family housing to multifamily housing be on this list? And the answer was no. We should wait for the land use chapter to be updated.
Oh, I think
and
that's
then
the same point that we were making, which is that land use chapter is going to drive a lot of additional decision-making and potential additional.
And I think so, like, looking at the small area plans, the thing that would be in this year is looking at the small area plans and seeing where changes have happened on the small area plans but not been reflected in the code, so that there's opportunities to correct those things and make them aligned.
All right, so moving on, because we're at 7:50 almost. Let's do exercise 2, starting with the first question. I'll read the intro. One of the largest and most resource-intensive items potentially on the work program is the update to the 2005 Land Use and Economic Development Chapter. As staff continues to prepare for this effort, it would be helpful to verify perceptions about what this is and what it isn't. So the first question to help us with that is, what are the must-haves this update cannot afford to ignore? So we'll start now for the next 10 minutes, and then at 8 o'clock shift to the second question.
So if we're going to pull from what we were just discussing, it feels like possible
I mean,
upzoning,
Bob has to start on this.
single-family homes would be part of
I
that.
don't think they
or
can
no,
start.
I don't know,
I
but
think a conversation
You gotta
around
come at me
it should be
with
part of
stuff.
it.
But it's got to be,
Well,
again, it has to be so careful. We have to be careful about how that's approached. I mean, I don't,
Here.
I don't know, it's going to be, that issue so fraught with different opinions, very strong on both sides. It needs to be approached very, not even the slightest inkling that there's any preconceived
feel as though
sort of end result.
must-haves with regard
The end result may be, we don't want that.
Yeah.
Maybe that,
Could be the
Yeah,
answer.
it could be.
yeah, maybe that we study that idea, the community evaluates it and determines that that's not what they want.
I mean, you're especially right at a time like now when certainly nobody's ready to have a fight.
Right, and you can learn, we see what happened in Arlington, and I mean, it would be a little different here, but not that much. I don't think, I think we'd see some of the same arguments on both sides, and, and our population's a little bit different, I think, there might be a
the
little
left
bit
and
more
right
folks who
limits
are
of what
probably a little more cautious about opening that up, So, I don't know, I just think it's something that,
maybe multifamily housing.
if we're going to include it in the land use plan, I think it has
in
to
our
be
zoning code.
a topic that's
Maybe not.
offered for study, but,
That's a
it's
bridge
not
too
in any
far.
way portrayed as
Rethinking
something that's being advocated, at least not by
Parking
the PC, and maybe
regulations.
there are council members individually who want to be out there advocating for
But
that.
I do think we need to
I don't know if that would be,
that
certainly
level
staff shouldn't do that. Our role shouldn't be to do that necessarily.
I suspect one of the initial work sessions, when that scoping discussion happens, is here's the list of things we think or have heard need to be addressed through this process.
Right.
But we need to know now before we
Then-
go any further if that is on the list.
The
So
other
if it's
thing
not,
I would
we don't think we want to even
suggest
entertain it. Let us know now, because this is already a hefty list. This is going to overshadow everything
land
else.
use chapter.
I might also say, when we're seeing it now with the South Lee Street thing that kind of fizzled
economic
out,
development chapter.
again, like a disconnect. Now that I think might have been covered by a small area plan.
Feel as though
I think that's, maybe I'm wrong. But again,
One
people
has to do
seeing,
with
trying to rezone to T,
accommodating
but without the right comp plan guidance to sort of steer it where it should be, shouldn't be. I mean, you see
things
some of,
happening along
so I think, obviously areas that are rezoned T, that's a different story, but for things that were sort of identified in earlier versions of the plan
condos on
as
Broad
potential to be rezoned, but without,
economic
now,
development.
yeah, now that they,
Primarily.
we kind of want to guide that, use the comp plan, use the land use chapter to now maybe more surgically and with better recommendations about how that might look and things it should need to provide, I think
Land use
it's just not
chapter.
there now. So you see what happened in that
Maybe you should focus
particular,
on things like housing.
case where people saw potential, maybe I could get in on this thing, but without the comp plan guidance, obviously the knee-jerk reaction was, this is not right, what they're trying, the way they're trying to go about it. So again, it's just like if we have, so I think that anything that was identified as potential to be rezoned adjacent to,
Are dealing with the public who
the main corridors as T,
persuaded.
I think we just need to be careful because it's going to become townhouses, so.
In order to provide the
just
housing.
what form we want them to take and how we want them to look is
One question.
considering the land use element.
You basically have to.
Yeah, I think the last time we discussed
have a
this
community
last
process of
year,
agreeing
you
that
talked
we
about
need
there being a very
economic
hard
development
edge.
because we need to pay for things, but also
And so
because
to me,
that
I'd love to have more of
provides
a
space,
cohesive
usually
look
vertical space
at
for
the way that these
housing.
different zones are interacting and what it feels like when you're going from one
See
to
what
the
I'm
next
saying?
and what we want to have happening in those
I
areas.
think there's an interdependence.
I mean, there is comp
on
plan
everything.
support
There's an
for, that was the
interdependence
future,
between
but the
land
meaning of the
use,
T-zones changed.
Transportation.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
and so
Used in
like,
schools,
it's,
you know,
now with that,
but
in light of that and in light of like what we've done with cottage housing, like we need to have a bigger conversation.
I don't,
about, like,
Right.
do
to
we
me, it
use
is not
this
Drill
intuitive.
down on
2.2
that.
square miles. And to me, like the
I think
residential,
you're right. Most people in the
70%,
city
right, of the land that we have, it feels
don't see
like
that they
leaving
got
them
together.
out and just focusing on the business areas where we already have small area plans.
I
just
can't
feels like
figure a world where they don't.
non-exercise.
If we had a
So,
lot of
I think the
extra
conversation
land
is
that was
around,
just sitting around being
you know,
unused, it'd be one
the
thing.
neighborhoods, but also just kind of how the
You know,
whole
everything that we are
community fits
doing
together.
has to be
and how
done
those things should
in
interact,
place of
those
something that's
areas should
already
interact.
there, usually a
Now,
building.
one of the things I've seemed to be missing, I guess,
So
is
we have to figure out how to
there needs to
use
be a
that
revisit to
land.
the
It's not so much
transitions
land use for us,
between the
it's
two
land
neighborhoods.
reuse.
Yeah.
Using Lee as an example,
Maybe, but if you go back.
it sounds like we only gone as far as to look at the way Madera in the back transitions. It has the convenience of a street creating a certain type of edge that you build off of, and everything looks a certain way after you get to the other side of it.
Oh, go
But what
ahead.
about all the sites that
No, go ahead.
are generally anticipating a
The-
similar
the
transition
key,
but without
though,
a
is-
street?
Right.
So you're coming up to a lot line.
In development,
that's
we're
someone's
creating
yard.
a sense of
Um,
unique uniqueness
And
and
I
a
think the
unique
debate that we
place
need to raise is,
that we
would
want
you
to
rather
call
be looking
home,
at a bulky
right?
parking structure likely, or some back of house
Collectively,
operations?
right, and I
tied
think
to a
that
much bigger
belongs
SE
in the
that
land
fronts on
use
Broad
chapter.
Street?
It also belongs.
That's kind of what Lee was saying, is like, the people that didn't like the project,
character, but I
know what the
think
alternative is,
that
right?
is also
We're just waiting
going
for
to
site
kind of
consolidation.
drive
Is that what you'd rather
economic
have, or
development. I
townhomes?
do see economic
But
development as
we can't have a debate
driving
right
some
now.
of the
Yeah, well, I hear you,
housing
but it also, and again, the
issue,
comp plan could help,
right?
again,
Like,
to decide, okay, we support
redevelopment of our
townhouse
quarters. It makes
development,
sense
you
that
know,
all
but
the small
the
area
form
plans
needs to be a
that-
certain way. They need
that
to, you know, maybe we look at the
our
density,
planners
you
have
know,
put
range and
into
whether or not they
each
can
one of those
achieve
small areas.
the high end of the
That makes
range
sense to be in that
is if they
chapter.
can meet certain other criteria.
And those
As
also
opposed
talk
to
about
just, you know,
vision
saying that they
for
get it by
each
right,
one of
you know,
those
like
small
they get
areas,
the full
right?
density that you get in T, because now you see what we
I do
have
see
now,
that
and people
the
will max out and put a
economic is
third
kind of a driver of how
you know,
we're using
in
our
an
land
awkward location, which is
to
what
pay
we've seen
for
on
services
Broad and
that
at
create
Park
that
and
sense of
Oak
place and uniqueness.
and Park and Lee. I mean, you know, I forget which one I dislike more, but they both have that third stick that really isn't great. You know, yeah, we're getting units, but layout perspective, a design perspective, it's
Sure,
you know,
are those comments in response
it's not
to
great
the-
design, and they're only
the
able to achieve
idea
that
of
because
decoupling the
by
two
right, and
chapters
they
in
can
your
put
sort
the
of
density
Yeah,
in. So
I
for
think
rezoning
in
though, where
the
we
same
would have some
chapter,
say,
I do.
you know, in whether or
I
not they
think
get
if
to
we
fully
decouple it,
achieve
we've
that
run the
max
risk of
density, you know, the
then
comp plan
we're
could help to
updating
guide
one,
that
not
and
the
lay
other.
out, you know, the criteria by which we should
One's a
evaluate
driver of the other.
those
It's like a
projects and
symbiotic
the
relationship.
principles that should be
I don't
incorporated into
think
that.
you
So
can
whether it's,
decouple
you know, there was
them.
concern on the South Lee also about how they were oriented. They were going to be opposite from 180 degrees, or 90 degrees opposite rather, from, you know, the houses on, that are the
I just,
existing frontage
I
of the
wanna be
single
careful
family,
that we don't
detached, and, I
end
don't
up
know, things like that. I mean, I don't have the, you know, but yeah, I think that would be a key
focusing on
part of that, because we're seeing that now, you know, I think the land use plan needs to look at, you know, where
and not
have there been the
focusing,
conflicts, you know,
which
like
is
where have there
a
been the
lot
land
of
use conflicts in the last 5 to 10 years that the current plan doesn't
What are we
properly,
gonna do
doesn't
with
adequately address?
Or what are we gonna
And I
do
think that's
with-
really what we need to drill down
I
on.
don't
You know, and obviously the outreach is important. I mean, you know, I think when we talk about the
What are we gonna
neighborhoods,
do with those
the R1A and B.
I don't know.
I mean, that's where the outreach to folks is important. Like, you know, people feel like they generally like their neighborhoods, or do they feel like, you know, there are things about it they don't like. I mean, that's the difficult thing about introducing some upzoning is that, you know, a lot of
suburban areas of.
real estate values in town would argue that people, you know, are paying a
But
lot.
there could
They
be a
generally
good
like,
discussion
you know,
about
the neighborhoods.
duplexes.
And so if you introduce a change
There
that
could be
would
a very good
potentially, you know,
discussion.
kind of
And it's not
upend that
necessarily the
form,
same
you know,
discussion.
it's,
as
again,
you're
how it's
having
done is to be really carefully
the
described.
theaters.
Yeah, there's
You
definitely,
don't totally, you know,
You see, they're-
upend that, and that's what gets
they're
people, let's say what gets
different
people upset, they don't picture the form in a way that's compatible
difference between
with their single-family detached. There are a lot of ways where it can be compatible.
Three-quarter
But
of
if
an
you don't
acre
properly,
lot.
we don't, you know, really dive into the details and have a plan
I mean,
steer
are you
towards that,
suggesting
you can get those
breaking
unintended
that chapter
consequences that, you know,
into
people get
like
angry
multiple
about.
chapters? Like what do we
Fear-driven
do
planning, I
with
think
the
people are
multi-use
concerned
zoned
about the
areas? What do we
negative.
I
do
think
with
that
the
might
R1
be-
by the way,
and
never
R2?
materialized. I've not seen one site here, and I'd love to have the time to do a study, where if you live across the street or next to a townhouse project or
Land use chapter is
multifamily,
going to-
and once it came online, your property values went down. It never happened. In the history of Earth, it just never happened. So that, plus
But I
And
think
the realities of economics, you guys asked a great
about-
question with we had the
There's a
townhouse
whole lot
project here
rest of this
last
city,
week.
which
Um,
are not,
If they haven't said that yet, they will soon, kind of the comparison of
not been
assessments.
driven by
You know, we're
economic.
going from $30,000, I think it was.
People wanting.
Right. One site. It's not even a big site.
There's zoning.
So that argument, it maybe now's not the right time, but at some point, we're gonna get to a point where
Only focus on
the only way to run the city and pay for everything is either we accept more sites to do this,
projects along Broad
or
Street,
your
Washington
single-family
Street.
homeowner assessment's gonna go up by this much.
Site of
Yeah.
the neighborhoods.
So which pain do you wanna live with?
Big
Right.
multi-use
I'm not,
development.
I'm not suggesting
topic
we lose
that
sight
can
of
be
the
debated,
neighborhoods,
but I'm
but maybe
always
the
kind of
economic
amazed by,
development
you know, here we had these old,
in this
worn out,
chapter as
you know,
part of those
environmentally
business
defunct
zones
houses.
and T
They're being
zones.
replaced by
And
all
looking at
electric,
how all the
kind
different
of
zone
much higher
types that we
efficiency
have
homes.
and how are we
Easy to
really
put in
using those
chargers,
areas?
easy
And
to
I'm
put
not
in
hard
solar.
on breaking
Yeah.
to do two different
There's a lot of
chapters.
benefits
I
to
am-
these things that don't,
I
I don't
think
know
we
if
just
that
need to
could
be
be a
aware
must-have,
that
but
are
it'd be good
neighborhoods
to
that have
get a broader discussion of what
single-family
development
houses.
permits. But I
And
think
then
that-
there's our commercial
Ties into
corridors.
what
The commercial
Any
corridors are the
other must-haves in this update?
I'm wondering about,
Economic
and I may be
development.
misplaced here, but
The
this whole
neighborhoods
concept
are
of balance between
recipients.
residential and commercial.
but they have their own
We've had
issues,
historically in the city this notion that we want as much commercial as we have. Don't
sidewalk issues,
exponential for
parking
residential.
issues.
But that's not what the market is, and so a lot of times it results in kind of a standoff. Not much gets done.
Economic development. Does that make sense? Am I
And we
making
don't,
sense at all?
it's very difficult to
you are.
get like an
You
all
are.
residential building.
But I'm not, I don't think that.
In certain places.
I don't
That
think
may
that if
be
you put it, if
something
you keep it in the chapter, it's
part
gonna,
of
we're gonna
this chapter.
only direct our
Where
attention
fully
towards
residential,
that.
multifamily buildings are
Okay.
appropriate? or-
That's what, I just,
And just
I
kind
don't
of
see it
downsizing the
as it taking
expectation
over the
of
chapter.
commercial.
I see it as being
At
part of
least
it
everywhere.
because we
In-
have.
In lieu of a
we
12th
do have
grocer, can we consider a?
zoned areas that are business, that are all, you know, for economic development. We
Yeah.
have industrial areas, right? Like, it's gonna,
All right,
I think you have to have.
I think we're at
It
time.
has
We're
to
gonna
be
move on to the second
a component
question.
of the chapter. I'm not saying that it is going to be the chapter.
Which topics or past guidance do you consider no longer appropriate to include in this chapter?
That's okay, no, it was good, it was a good conversation, I understand where you're coming from.
Noted.
Question, yeah, what's, what are you thinking of there,
To have the
Matt?
big picture.
I mean, we kind of touched on it before, like, I think the
In the old
2000.
So the next one is B, which topics or past guidance do you consider
Probably spent a lot on.
no longer appropriate to include in this chapter? However counterintuitive it may seem,
I think
counterintuitive.
we mentioned it earlier, but the
Well, I would have said
2005
economic development.
land use.
We had that discussion. I'm not familiar enough with what's
Guidance
in
we
the
had.
chapter.
I'm looking at
He's
it.
not gonna walk the plank again.
Sharon has called it
Commercial
up and will
areas
tell us
that
what our floor is.
Maybe that
Do
detail
we
doesn't need
care
to belong
about
there
what our
anymore.
neighbors are
Especially if it's
doing?
gonna create just contradictions and
Only
issues for us.
like at the
And B,
peripheral edges, do we
maybe it's better
care?
served
Like,
addressing
do
other
we-
topics.
Is that why it's
Not to
in
mention
here?
that it's hard to predict the future, so.
The chapter.
You
Right.
know what's gonna happen.
Quiz me on
Reference
what
to
is
the
it.
area plan. Are we,
It's just basically saying we're surrounded
totally
by
covered.
two
Yeah,
different
that's why I was like,
jurisdictions. But I think it's important to kind of
right,
tie
right.
into what they're doing at our
Washington?
borders and what we're
Yeah.
working on
Yes.
Yeah, that was
together.
the
Anything
most
we've
recent
learned
one.
that working
Because I know
together
Virginia
with
Village is
neighbors
like between two.
Much to our benefit.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't drop that.
But it's things like that, and I think what I've also heard
I think commercial
Past
rents, do we
inquiries.
want to keep
is the
stuff like
chapter
that
also
in there?
heavily
Economic-
introduces and outlines economic development. It's even in the
Falls
title.
Church
What can I
City.
say?
And how do
Okay,
people
so
feel about
Falls
that?
Church
Yeah,
City
is that the
assets,
point of
new construction,
the
commercial
land
rent.
use. I mean, it's an
Gives you the
important
average
factor
commercial rent.
in
home
the
It has been in the
sustainability of
last
the
10
city.
years.
City and regional market trends.
Yeah.
All
But
that.
yeah, it is, that was a
Let's see.
recommendation I think that we got from the Virginia Tech
Largest businesses.
student report.
Staff.
I
have
can see
anything-
what you're saying.
Staff have
But
anything in
I think
particular?
maybe
They recommended
we need
Still
to
on
add,
draft.
we need to add stuff about
That were
the,
kind
You remember if
maybe
that was
that's
moving it just
the
from the title?
Insight
discussion,
into
is
that
we need to make
question.
sure that we're including our other
Sort of like.
Well, it was
zoning
the earlier draft
areas.
So I can.
I don't know, I just,
It wasn't like
Came
where we had the 3 words listed, I thought there was some more stuff that you have to go back. It was kind of the early edit version is what I was saying.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and dig up that report. You have it, right?
Somebody sent it to me a while ago. I haven't
Okay.
I've skimmed it.
Values in our neighborhoods in place since the 60s. That's when the codes were.
Anything for me?
It's time to throw the cards in the air. I'm saying,
Everything's appropriate, right?
feasibility and diversity of housing and things like that. We don't want to throw the cards in the
Yeah,
air.
it's interesting. There's a lot in this chapter. Like there's this whole section on personal income.
But
It's almost
do
like
want to
largest businesses located. So yeah, there is a lot on
really,
economic
our
development that I
neighborhood
think could be
has done this
jettisoned.
incredible job. along
And then these are really all the-
Broad Street.
Actually, it's a nice plan, actually.
From where you guys sit, and you've been here, you know, you're more involved maybe than an average
I mean,
resident,
if
let's
we're
say.
concerned about
Um,
utilities in the neighborhood.
Do you feel like you understand the city's economic
guess-
development strategy?
Well,
Would you know where to find
There's,
one?
I think, We probably do, maybe more than the average person. I
I
mean,
was
I think
scrolling through-
we've
I
been
was scrolling through and thinking and.
It's starting to change a little bit now, but it's been
Well,
about
yeah.
maximizing,
There's
you know,
like
development on our
transportation
commercial
is-
corridors, right, to
Yeah.
subsidize both our schools. And, as Tim said, offset the residential tax burden.
Yeah, we have a whole chapter on
For a
that.
while, that we were kind of even against that, the density. I mean, that's been the change I've noticed.
Transportation as a
You
component.
know, we were sort of
It's-
kind
one of the
of,
most-
some of it
It's a
was
link,
motivated by
you know.
water sale.
It's a link.
Parking.
Like,
You know, and maybe,
big financial, like, sort of earthquakes that happened here was, there was the court decision in the early
Yeah.
teens that said
We have a picture
we
of
could
the
no
fire
longer
station.
use revenue from the Falls Church Water Department to pay toward.
And I think our housing's been.
That was a huge
well,
cash cow
You're
that
both,
basically allowed
you're
us
all
to
three
not
talking about
have
housing issues.
dense new
And
development,
I think this is
getting
one
this revenue
where,
stream.
you know, if you're looking at
Tyson, edge of Tyson's
no longer
all over
appropriate
the place.
to include, but you could do
The Supreme Court of Virginia.
appropriate to
you
include.
can only use that
Something like, I think the
money to
emphasis
pay for the
wasn't
system.
on affordable
After the
housing
earthquake, and that's when
over the
we
years.
did the
And
whole
maybe,
water wars and
maybe
sold the
we flip
system,
this and kind of say,
annexed the
that we
land,
need more
but we
emphasis
knew that,
on
okay, we're
housing.
losing that revenue stream.
So,
It was time to
where it's
really,
no
you know,
longer
that's why we
appropriate to
went
include. I
gangbusters
think
at West
there's,
Falls. We said, let's go.
I mean, it gets back to the gaps, but still,
added to that was
Yeah.
the need
I
to
think
build the high
you could
school.
flip this and say, hey,
Right, we had,
so,
And the library.
I kind of heard that from everybody.
right, we had
There are
expenses,
some goals
and
here
without
for
that revenue,
residential
and,
land
but
use.
just in general, I mean,
There
that,
are.
you know,
Yeah.
Jim also, I think, you know, sort of helped.
what are those goals?
We didn't allow
Maintain existing
dense
zoning.
development, more dense development along Broad and Washington
Development
corridors.
residential
that-
areas.
Right, we were, you know, the trajectory was not.
Attached, yeah. Status quo, see? I'm telling you.
And that's
In terms of, like, when the question of economic development comes up,
really want to be.
if I just got here, where would you point me towards finding, is it written out anywhere? Or are we basically left to study recent actions by the council?
It's a good question.
and kind
Consider
of
revising
pull it together?
setbacks,
Do they have
lot
any kind of
coverage,
documents that they, you know,
Pipe stem
lay out
regulations.
their vision or
building
mission,
size
or, you know, they're
I
sort
don't
of
think so. They just
quasi-independent,
want,
but.
they just
And
want more.
encourage residential property owners to.
Is that's like,
provide
is anybody looking at this chapter
guidelines
to get to the
and
strategy?
Principles for
Does it
creating
already live somewhere
compatible
else?
new
That's a good question. I
Part of
don't
our
know.
answer.
Yeah, I don't personally know where it lives.
So we've already established that the
So
design
follow from that.
guidelines.
If it doesn't, if nobody's referencing this
So-
chapter,
McMansion's blue.
but they're not also referencing something else, and it's vibes.
We do have goal 8 is
Is-
protect residential neighborhoods from the impact of commercial development.
Like,
And from
which,
other
where's
non-residential
the chicken and the egg
uses.
here? Like, do we make the do we like really focus and put a lot of effort into building this chapter and this
then we've
informational,
got-
this,
we move
this
into
tome of
commercial
information
areas.
that is now the guiding principle?
Goals. Those are the goals that I was just.
Or we can make this chapter and spend all this effort, put all this time, and
It's
everything
easier
just
to return
vibes
to the
their way
second
through
question and talk
decision-making
more
based
about
on. I mean,
must-haves.
there's not, and vibes makes it sound like people are not taking
Realize
this seriously. We're taking it very
question does
seriously.
kind of require.
But I think there's
ask like specifically about the chapter. which
Everything is changing every day.
Folks aren't reading every
Lot of
night before
people
bed,
and
so if it's easier to talk
A lot of
about.
people got laid off, and like there's a lot of changes.
If folks have more
that may not be
thoughts,
the same,
maybe
may be the case
for
3 years from now.
must-haves in the chapter,
Rather than
Yeah.
what you, or what you'd like to see in the chapter than what you.
That's a great
wouldn't-
point, because
Than what you want to take out. Then
the reality of
absolutely
those forces,
go back to
the
So
way
more-
that an economic
more
development
balance.
strategy has to react to them,
Up higher.
pretty
on
much
the
should take that decision and the
economic
home of that
development
strategy away from
component of
a
land
static
use
document
and
that
the
we may not
preservation of
revisit again for
neighborhood.
however many years, if
Right.
not decades.
Character.
Right, so
Preservation, that's a loaded
that's
word.
part of the
Character
answer.
of
The other
neighborhood
answer is,
as
how
a
quickly are we
concern,
evolving and
as a
adapting?
focus.
And I
And let
would sound like a
people go
broken
where they
record,
will. I
but
mean, if
this is where the department
you've
director
got
steps in. Part of a lot of what Jim has to
says
do
we
is,
want economic development
let's set the
and we want to have
strategy.
neighborhoods with
In
character.
2026, this is the challenges we're facing.
And that's the role decide what character means
Right.
to them. And you
So,
can go out and go
if you
door to
take the
door
static
and
document,
build
take the
duplexes
vibes,
and triplexes.
like a department director,
Somebody else can go door to door and
Yeah.
say that's the end of the world. And then we have an
Difficult
election and somebody chooses one path or the other and we.
but I think we're at
pursue
least
that.
hearing the same thing, like, this is probably not the
Do
vehicle
that,
for it.
whichever.
It should be something
majority-
else, something we can
hopefully
update
we
more
do it
regularly.
In a way, I guess
That's
I
right.
would
Yeah,
say.
I forgot that's in the
whatever
title,
we
and you said
do,
economic development.
let's try to set it
combined.
up so that
It isn't always the case, right? That's kind of interesting that we combine. I mean, obviously they're
lawsuits,
intricately,
if we can avoid.
intrinsically linked rather, but
That's what you said.
There's
Yeah.
a very long vision statement on page 44.
What we've accomplished in Falls
page
Church.
44.
It starts with
Sprinkling
the
affordable
city will continue to be a
housing
well-balanced community of residential and
buildings
commercial development.
Is
So they really did
not
see
the
it.
world
kind of.
shaking, but it's good progress. And it's more than
Well, I mean,
Arlington's been able to
I understand
do.
why.
Tied up in
It's
court.
interesting that,
They
well,
have
varying that
more
on 44 is
ambitious
the
triplexes, duplexes in residential neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have a discussion on these goals and
mostly litigation.
There's strategies and actions. And are these still the
I draw the distinction
goals that we
between
would
affordable
prioritize
and affordable.
in our land use? So,
Right, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we purely just trying to lower the residential, tax rate? Or are we trying to encourage, certain types of businesses here, certain types of economic activity? I mean, I think, the market obviously has been, squeezing certain kinds of retail, other kinds of retail, restaurants and experiences are doing well, but very little else. We're kind of like a city of grocery stores and restaurants, I mean, which is true in the Northern Virginia retail climate in general. Like if you...
What do you feel like we're missing?
Great question. And the things the things we are missing would probably be difficult to locate here.
Substantive way.
By-
What do market forces?
Shirt in Falls Church, right? Clothes, shoes in
By
Falls
our
Church.
best intention.
You can buy running shoes, I guess. We have that.
Yeah, performance.
I think the missing link is, and we don't have any guidance that I think even starts to like nudge people in that direction, which is something equivalent to like a retail plan where if you look at the linear nature of Broad and even Washington to a degree, because it has its own issues.
Yeah.
That's not very.
Right now, in the absence of that guidance, we're saying commercial
All's a
uses
lot.
everywhere, but mainly
Well,
restaurants
it's not
and
if you
grocers.
take money from people who
Because
have
we have that revenue generating, the what?
Basically,
Leave it up to the marketplace. Come in
subsidize
and tell
the
us what you want to build.
units.
Except that I think there's pieces in the ordinance that, for whatever reason, that currently prohibit some uses. Daycare operators, veterinary offices.
$1,000
But
condos.
beyond the permission, I think there's also a lack of strategy where,
Winter Hill
to your
has
point, what are we missing?
what does the community need?
But there's
And kind
no
of going
new
back to the
construction.
clustering of retail, and then also, do we really have a destination?
One bath.
And some of the things that people highlight as
Oak
destinations are not
is
destinations.
700,000, I think.
There's some historic sites, they're not
Well, that
destinations.
doesn't count the
And I think clustering
condo
key
fees. which are-
complementary uses that help the restaurants. I mean, any type
People
of
don't
performing arts space,
really get
an
that.
escape room, something you can
I'd
do
love
in the
for us to build
weekend.
around Scramble, right? Like what we're
I see.
building up
As we
around.
get
Like you've got all
entertainment.
these parents
Work on
with next to
chapter,
where these kids are playing, like
have that
eating
discussion
food
so
that
that
they
when
eat
we
on
get
the food thing.
individual
Right.
I'd
projects,
love
It's
for
it's
them.
like a complete view, but that we have to get past the obstacle
nothing
of,
affordable there.
as necessary and helpful as these
Why
uses
is
are,
that?
they don't generate the same thing as a restaurant.
Right.
They
Right?
create a great place that people want to spend time.
Well, also, we should build a bean.
So
I mean,
don't know
like
that
some
we have
artistic
drop out.
item that is a
Not like we're
cultural
calling for
touchstone of some sort. People want to
buggies
come take
and
pictures.
carriages.
The bean in and of itself, like,
It's amazing. People just travel just to get a selfie.
Anyone in Chicago?
Brag
Like,
about it.
Yeah.
oh, the famous
Golf course?
Sculpture, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Victorian
I mean, it's
Society.
in Grant Park, so it's in like a place where people are going anyway, but it's sort of like. you come to the
Jim
bean and
Snyder
walk
can,
across the street.
with always golf courts.
Like
carts.
that
Yeah.
concept,
Well,
like,
that's
I'd love for us to
actually
think about that, especially as we, if and when we ever get around to Mason Square, or we
All right,
figure out
so,
something
go.
for it, that was
We'll have
Good.
that
You
on
know
the
what
stand.
you're saying?
Nope, I have no idea.
All right, I think we're ready for reporting.
Bob did a nice job.
Gonna need some help
you take
on-
notes
I took
again?
some notes, but I didn't
So
really get anything on that last.
We'll let you start this
Why don't you
time.
guys
All
start?
right, we will start. So we talked about the what are the must-haves that we can't afford to ignore. We started off initially talking about upzoning, and then we backtracked a little bit on whether that needs to be in this particular conversation, considering what a touchstone that particular conversation is going to be. And I believe our thought process, and these are my haphazard notes, please correct me if I'm not reporting this accurately, was around getting some guidance on whether that's even a conversation we want to have before putting the work into the land, putting that into the work that's going into the land use chapter update.
Is upzoning a conversation we even want to have?
We as Falls Church want to have.
We right.
Right. Some of the conversation we had had was that it is both, a lot of people think it's very important, a lot of people would like to very much not have it, and if we're going to go through, it's not the same community as Arlington, but if we're going to go through that whole situation, we've probably going to really want it from a leadership conversation all the way down before we start to touch it. I believe the phrase was used, the third rail of housing conversations. So that's where we started, and then we came back to the thought of maybe that's not really the area unless all of Falls Church, council on down, is committed to pushing through on that particular conversation. There's also a conversation around inclusion of our commercial versus residential zoning approach, where much of the focus is on the commercial aspect of things, which only really accounts for about 30% of the area within Falls Church. And then that leaves out the 70% of the area that is residential. And what are our best uses for that? And leaving that out felt like a mistake or a missed opportunity in this conversation. We additionally wanted to talk about the broader discussion of what development permits, sorry, those two words don't go together. What development would allow us to take advantage of the benefits of rebuilding housing and replacing older stock housing with newer housing in terms of the advantages of electrification, charger availability, solar availability, reduced costs, reduced environmental damage by having newer, more efficient housing, even though that is a thing that has been generally looked down upon over the last couple of years. And then looking at the difference between, or the previous balance of residential and commercial, where we've looked at residential housing that is inclusive of commercial aspects, and are there opportunities to have residential only multifamily apartment or bigger than townhome style multifamily housing, the concept of an all residential building that had no commercial on it. And is that, from a financial standpoint, from a tax-based standpoint, an opportunity for us? And then we got to the topics of do we want to leave out? And we got into a sort of tangent conversation. There was nothing anybody wanted to leave out. It's all important, was basically, I think, where we landed.
I think there were some things we wanted to leave out or put less
I didn't take notes on that one very effectively, so maybe somebody
But
can help me with that.
do you guys want to report out on your must-haves first, and then we can go on to the
Yeah, that'd be great.
item B?
Well, we actually, yes, sure. They're very hard to separate out these two questions. So we actually, I think, maybe looked at them together. And quite frankly, we were not as familiar enough with the land use chapter to say what should be left out. So, but we did have, it's amazing, we had very similar conversations as you had. In terms of, you were talking about the commercial versus the residential. We had a very similar conversation with regard to, and my perspective was that if you focus too much on the economic development piece lens of this chapter, you're going to focus on the commercial corridors. You're going to focus on things that are going to make money for the city. And as you point out, there is 70% of the land in this city is R1A and R1B type of zoning, not necessarily part of the commercial corridor. So I think we didn't necessarily want to break this into two separate chapters, but there was a recognition that you don't want to view the land use chapter strictly through the lens of economic development. And actually, as we were thumbing through the chapter, the existing chapter does focus on the commercial corridors and economic development, and it does not focus on our neighborhoods as much. So I think we came to a very similar conclusion. We also talked about it in terms of the neighborhoods, that should we in fact address some of these big issues that have gotten Arlington County sued, and do we want to go down that path or not, the missing middle path. And I think the general consensus was we probably do want to go down that path, just to see where it leads.
The consensus here, you mean? The consensus here.
I think that was
Okay.
I think it was back and forth, yeah.
Yeah.
To have the
I don't
conversation.
think, yeah, it was a conversation.
It was a
I don't think it was
conversation. It was a
it was a
conversation.
directive kind of thing.
Yeah. And then, from my perspective, and I think there was consensus on this, that we really need to do this on a deliberate way by looking at this from have a serious conversation before we put pen to paper on the chapter about what are the left and right limits of this chapter. And do we want to include upzoning? Do we want to include some of the more challenging conversations? And maybe we don't, but we probably need to have a study regarding what could go into that chapter and what we should leave out. How did I?
Yeah, I think to summarize, do we want to have a conversation about upzoning? Yes, we would like to do it in a way that acknowledges that neighborhoods, especially the more suburban neighborhoods, Broadmont and the far reaches of the West End and elsewhere, have a different notion about, land use and zoning. And, acknowledge that in the chapter and try to make the chapter reflect the fact that there needs to be a conversation about this if we're going to reach the council's aspirations to have housing opportunities for all.
Can I ask an annoying question to that? Because we kind of covered that as well. If not for upzoning issue, right? The theme is that the land use chapter does not need to speak for the commercial areas because they're well defined in the small area plans. And instead, the land use chapter should focus more on the residential neighborhoods, which don't quite have a vision.
Better balanced.
Right. As we rebalance that and we look into the residential neighborhoods, if not up for this upzoning content, let's say the council says, don't touch it. Is there anything else that really the residential neighborhoods are asking for,
Sure, I
could
mean,
benefit from? Or was that always the only issue that,
No, there are other issues. I mean, the debate about sidewalks. I mean, going back to 1986, Lou Olam didn't want a sidewalk in front of his house on Poplar. And we fought about that then, and we'd still fight about it now. If you try to roll sidewalks into Broadmont, they'll be hell to pay. Land, stormwater runoff,
tree canopy?
In some of the residential areas, purchasing of lots that we've done to, deal with trouble spots. That ought to fall into land use in a more significant way. There probably ought to be more houses that we buy. There are houses here that should never have been built. We ought to have the resources to take them offline. So yeah, there's other things to talk about, but I don't think we are suggesting that we not engage on the upzoning question. In fact, maybe just the opposite. Instead of that question being discussed only in connection to a specific development, like I don't like those townhouses, and to boot, you guys are trying to upzone the entire city. Like decouple that conversation and try to have what kind of a whole community do we want? Do we want to provide any housing opportunities for people who cannot afford anything over $1 million anywhere that's zoned R1A or B? Yes or no? If the answer is no, we don't want to help those people, then we've got to do it on the major corridors and vertical buildings. I don't know how the conversation would turn out, but there'd be a good turnout for it.
That's for sure.
I think if you look at that third exercise, there's at least 6 recommendations on that third exercise. That one of them is, in fact, upzoning.
Yep.
But there's also 5 other recommendations that could potentially be, may not be right for the city, but we'll get into those in a few. Other recommendations.
Also, I wanted to, yes, another thing, the residential areas, like the environmental advantages of renewing your housing stock, even if you love it, you know, it's like, my house, gotta love it, been around 75 years, probably time for it to go. You know, the way it's built, the environmental aspects of it could be much improved, not to mention the most important issue for many people who say they want to live here till they die, which is accessibility. I mean, a lot of people need to be living in places that are one level or have one level access, and there's very little opportunity for that now. You have to go to a high-rise building. So if the neighborhood discussion were more around, that's what we saw in the discussion about accessory dwellings. A surprising number of people coming forward saying, I'd love to have one of those in my backyard for my mother-in-law or my, you know, disabled grown child or whatever. The whole accessibility opportunity is something that you can get people behind that you might not have thought would have been on the same page. Do we want to go? Wrap up the comments?
Yeah.
The stuff we want to keep no longer appropriate. Go ahead.
Well, I heard a lot of discussion, so just to remind the group that we had a presentation from the Virginia Tech students. It was resurfaced for us in May of last year, and they also flagged the kind of strong emphasis on economic development, feeling a little misplaced in this chapter, and so right-sizing that, not removing it altogether, because it is part of our land use, but sort of right-sizing the focus on economic development in this chapter, I think was one thing that maybe is not something that's not in it, but that we're putting less of an emphasis on. And then the other thing that I heard was, you know, rather than sort of having the plans and the small area plans for each of these specific areas, and then also sort of some competing ideas in the land use chapter, let's just have the land use chapter kind of refer to those small area plans. Maybe there's some kind of broad guidance. I think I heard that general support for that idea, rather than sort of ping-ponging updates back and forth between the two and then having differing recommendations for the same area within the city. Let's refer to these more specific plans. And then I think, yeah, like just structurally, it's quite a long document. There's a lot of sort of excess material. I'd love to revisit the goals and strategies that were identified. Is there anything else that we wanted to dump?
There were some other conversations we had about the broader usefulness of this document and how it lives as the guiding, either is this the guiding principle for what Falls Church wants to do around land use, or is it the council's directive? Are they the same thing? Are they different? And how do we keep them in line? And is the value of this document, or the value of this work, informing the council's priorities? Is it reflecting the council's priorities? Or is it supposed to live separately? I described it with a more offhanded comment, but like, is it worth it to keep, I am boiling this down to a thing that's probably not a true statement, but like, is it worth it to keep doing this document, putting this much effort into it, if it is not the thing that is being referenced and leveraged to make a lot of these decisions?
I think it is, and I think it should be. I mean, my own personal opinion, and I would say it's like the community's vision for our land use. Not the council is going to change every 2 years, right? And so this should be the community's vision for how we want to use the 2.2 square miles that we have, and we have a lot of other plans that we need to kind of incorporate and bring together into some sort of more cohesive vision, right? We have now accessory dwelling units, we have cottage housing. What other areas in the city do we want to have cottage housing? We have the small area plans. So how do all of these different plans that we have interface? Like, I see this document as kind of the home, like a home that is maybe referencing those things, but also kind of bringing them together in a way that they make sense together. So,
How do you all, in light of that, square or try to eliminate to people what you do when the market wants to do something that is completely or significantly different from what the comp plan says? Do we need, or do other jurisdictions have a sort of wild card, like, hey, we're going to lay a wild card down on that one because we'd never really thought about that being a aerial drone landing pad.
That's when the comp plan, people usually remind you the comp plan is a guide.
Yeah.
And the comp plan.
The other
we do
jurisdictions
those-
have like structures like, okay, we all can agree at the very outset, this is not what we had in mind, but we want to pursue it.
There's a staff analysis for, any time a new project comes in, right? Staff, assesses that
And it
project
says
against the
it's-
small
This
area
is
plan.
wholly incompatible with the comp
Yeah,
plan.
and then it's a choice, presumably, that our council can make to, do we want to
There's
go
usually
forward
ways,
with this
it
or not?
depends. People can be creative if there's overarching policies in other chapters.
I'm thinking data
know?
centers out
Yeah.
No data centers in Falls Church.
Trying to look ahead.
Sometimes you can find,
this money we can get.
Something, I don't know
sometimes
what
you
it
can
is.
find a way,
The trouble is with the way it is, if the staff report says, well, this is not anything anybody ever thought about, then that sort of kills it.
It can.
There may be things that we don't want to kill.
Yeah, or it's a nudge that maybe we need to update the comprehensive plan, right?
Well, that's my question. Should the comprehensive plan include call it what you will, an emergency button that you push that sends you down a different track of things that we had not thought might happen?
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be, but 30 years ago, would we have a notion that, Park Avenue was going to be lined with $1 million, $2 million townhouses? Maybe we would have. Maybe we would have thought that was fine. Or maybe we wouldn't have. When Thurber Court was built in the 60s, that was like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Townhouses, those are the wrong kind of people. We don't want those people. And now, of course, it's, embedded in the fabric of the city.
I think the trick here is the level of detail. And right now,
Right.
for those that require ammunition to kill an idea or a proposal, there's plenty of ammunition in that plan because it's so specific.
Yes.
And that creates in itself opportunities to show, well, you didn't meet that, or this is way out of line with whatever we were thinking in 2005. So by the simple nature of elevating the level of detail to a more general state, you eliminate some of those opportunities, but then it's the whole shift of, if we have small area plans, if we have the zoning ordinance, what purpose is this document serving? And maybe it's flying at an altitude that makes it very difficult to use as ammunition for future cases. And maybe future-proof it, at least for a decade or two, knowing that there's no document out there that solved it. It's not possible, but just minimizing it.
Well, it's good to have the conversation, I think, wherever it goes.
All right, so it is 8:30. If we do 30 minutes as envisioned for the next exercise, that gets us to 9 o'clock. Slightly behind schedule, but.
That's okay.
Okay, so,
We also want to talk those two city council questions.
correct.
Yeah, most important issues and why. I think.
Do you want to do that first or the exercise?
I just don't want to forget about it. We can do the
Okay.
exercise now.
All right, so for this one, we're going to actually go through all 6, 5 minutes each, and then we're going to, each group will report out on what they did, how they scored each category. So 1 through 5, and this is basically kind of just going through the 6 principles and generally figuring out how are we doing in terms of, is this something that should be addressed because it's actually causing an issue in terms of housing objectives, or perhaps we already tackled this, so it's not as big of an issue. So between 1 to 5, and then we can tally up and compare scores.
Is each one 1 to 5, or can you only use each number once?
Each one is 1 to 5.
And if we've already done the thing, like we've done it, backyard cottages, check.
Then it's, it would be a 1 because it's least significant.
Because we've already
meaning-
done it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
0? I don't know.
And do we want to just rate them as is, or do we want to suggest our approach might be slightly different?
I don't think approaches or recommendations are embedded in these questions. It's simply getting at, does this topic require a revisit or update because we think it's really significant or has the potential to significantly update and improve our ability to reach housing goals. So if you have time, you can consider options, but 5 minutes per is not going to give us too much time. Try and get to 9 p.m. before we get to the survey questions. And by the way, just we did mention this. Does anybody want to do any further context, background on strong towns?
I would like some, yes.
Well, I'm not going to hold myself out as having the final answer, but I've been following this group for about 5 years, I guess, maybe 6. And the way they got started is because they were concerned that the post-World War II non-dense suburban sprawl was not producing enough tax revenue to finance or pay for the infrastructure that was needed to sustain that development. And so a lot of these things were kind of, they were developed to help create more density. And that density was related to producing enough tax revenue to support the infrastructure that was needed to build all that stuff. So that's kind of like my interpretation. Right. When I get the literature today that comes out of strong towns, and there's a lot of it, I always try to filter it with that thought in mind. It applies to some extent to Falls Church, but by no means entirely.
Right. It started with like cities that were ailing or a little economically depressed.
Yeah.
And we're like looking right. And so it was not necessarily. Yeah, that's kind of how it was. The generation of it.
Yeah.
Hence the name, like strong towns, how to make your town stronger. Kind of economically, but right, it was about the infrastructure. They couldn't pay for their water and sewer systems and things that had been built out in the 50s and 60s that were now, their life cycle was coming due and they couldn't pay for it anymore.
Well, and there was the thought that there was kind of a Ponzi scheme because developers would come in and they would pay for the initial infrastructure. So this looked great, the tax revenues were fantastic, there's
And
no
the community's
expense.
on the hook for.
Yeah, but 20, 30 years down the road, then all of a sudden, the bill comes
Everything's
due and it's
breaking.
like, oops, we got a problem here. So that's just background, my sense of why they came up with these things.
All right, we ready? Okay, 5 minutes per.
Why are we discussing strong towns in reference to Falls Church City?
I think I was from Minnesota.
Well, I think,
So I'm just remembering like how that started.
Yeah.
Right? It was about like
Chuck Marone.
right.
Right.
So
I felt as though it has a lot to do with land use.
All right, so 1 to 5, least to most
perspective.
significant allowed duplex or triplex.
Go through these questions
right.
and
So in order to meet
I'm
our
not
housing
sure.
goals, I guess it depends on like which goals we're talking about in terms of
that
housing
was the first
production.
I heard
Like,
that this sort of
we're
was-
pretty good, right?
I'm not sure.
Do we have the diversity of unit types that we're after?
No, go ahead.
But I
A lot of,
do think
One
if you go through
bedrooms,
these questions,
studios, some 2 bedrooms, not a
allow
lot of families.
duplexes and.
Maybe an element of that, but I think they're
That's a
going
good
after
framing
density.
question.
So I think I viewed it as, and some of the online introductions that we pulled into this was
A lot of communities.
traditional approaches rely on the
Arlington
big
County is
multifamily
not
buildings to make up
Right.
and deliver the housing supply,
It's not necessarily
putting pressure on all the commercial areas and
economically.
conveniently or politically ignoring the other parts of the jurisdiction that could be delivering the duplexes and triplexes.
Maybe.
So
maybe
I
they'll-
think for the first row, the question becomes,
Not applicable.
So
could
just
this,
to help
tackling
me
this
understand
issue,
what
the
we're
ability
supposed
for the
to
city
grade.
to allow
Let's just say
and
that-
support duplexes and triplexes?
So I do want to allow duplexes.
Is that something that could significantly change the game in Falls Church, or not so much?
As a 5?
I think it depends on-
Because
I
I
mean, it's
really
not like
want
every
that, or do
Tear down their
Yeah,
house and build
so compared to other,
or do I put it as a 1?
From a question of demand,
because
It
right?
would be, yeah.
Now there's a
I think
consensus to
we're-
do
yeah.
that.
You're giving people
it's
options
sort of
to
just
do
looking
it.
at, compared to other housing
Personal
forms. So
circumstances.
only in consideration to other
Would like the development
tools in the
community come in and
toolbox
build-
to address
tear
the
down a bunch
city's
of single-family
housing
homes and
goals.
build a bunch of
How
I don't
duplexes?
know, it's
would
interesting. I mean,
expanding
obviously like the
duplex and
market
triplex
unit type
options
is
by
not
right
well
achieve those goals?
tested in
How
this
significant
area.
do you think
so-
that would be, that one
So, so as far as like the
tool
demand for
be
that.
to
The duplex is kind of
moving the
like
needle?
Question is whether
Right.
it would be
a town, 2
significant
townhouses.
We kind of have a handful of
significant
them
do
scattered
you
around
think
the
it
city
would
just
be?
because we
Yeah.
get that weird quirk in
a lot or a
Yeah.
little?
In Falls Church
Very specific
specifically.
circumstances, there's like a handful, not even, yeah, there's a couple I know just from driving by, like.
We're gonna
Yeah.
start adopting a
Yeah, but,
policy.
I mean, I don't know, I just think as the accessory
That's the
dwelling unit thing
direction.
showed us, I don't know, I'm still a little skeptical of sort of opening the floodgates and
I mean,
saying,
it was developed for.
making it by right, so like I, you
And
know,
what we're
I haven't fully
currently
drunk the strong towns
experiencing, so-
Kool-Aid, like I get it,
misleading.
But I do think
And I
that,
wouldn't want
you know,
to,
this,
like,
I don't
see that and say,
know.
what
I
do
do,
you
like I
really
said,
do?
often get weary of like the
Just
concept
accept,
of being that
if we X out
somehow
the Strong Town
Yeah.
policy
everything
and
about,
just
you
say,
know,
we're gonna have a conversation.
Let's have a
post-World War II
conversation
suburban
about it.
neighborhoods are all,
Wow, there's 6 of them.
should be thrown
Yeah,
out.
10 minutes.
You know, like the
These
thing
are,
about it is
you
so
know,
bad, we
meant
need to
to,
start
again,
over and care
foster
about.
like conversations. So these
I just
are
don't,
like
to me, I just don't find
recommended
that, you know, I
tools,
think,
again,
I
yeah,
know
from
some people
Strong
who live there
Towns.
now, like have a vested interest in
And
maybe
so
not
it's really
feeling
just,
that way,
you know,
but-
seeing what
so it's
folks
sort of
think
like in some
about
ways,
each
like, you
one.
know, I don't
See
know,
if it applies to
leads to a
Falls Church.
difficult
Maybe it
discussion
doesn't
that
apply to
puts
Falls
people-
Church in your view, and that's fine too. There can be an
So,
NA option.
I think waiting
if
it
you don't
slowly,
wanna
I think is just a
vote on
realistic,
it.
it's just
But it's,
admitting
you know,
that
these are
that's a
just
realistic way
meant
to.
to.
So are we
goal is to
supposed
allow
to
more
each come up
density
with our own, or are we
and,
supposed to,
lower
as a
lower
group,
some of
come
the
up
price
with
by
a
increasing the
number?
supply.
Yeah, so
You know, I
so
think,
each one
you know,
individually
which
you
is
can
not,
score
I'm
it.
not completely against
Can we
that
just take
goal.
the whole
I think that you have to do it though in a
strong towns
deliberate
policy out of
way.
it? That's
So I
alluding
don't
to the
know,
fact
like,
that
so
I
I think
understand
for
the
rating
whole
this from
small
least
town
significant to most
policy, the
significant,
intent
he
of
says
it, and blah, blah, blah,
Scratch
blah.
that out.
but it's
Yeah.
prohibited, impossible,
No, I know,
5,
it's just on the-
legal,
on the
easy.
final thing, like, I
I mean,
just
number
don't-
one to me is
I don't-
closer to
I
like
don't
a 2.
know what I'm agreeing to,
I
and
think that
it's
would be a huge change. I think it would
identified as
be
something that I just don't
dramatic,
have.
Of like the
controversial.
Strong Towns policy?
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I mean, you
The
may
cost
just
of getting it approved.
say 0 on
maybe
all of them.
Yeah.
And we, you know, I mean,
value that
everybody
it would
can have their opinion on it.
Present, especially like.
I think
But I understand what you're saying.
If
so,
Arlington-
and then,
Well, I-
but I also understand what Mr. Krasinski's saying is,
Yeah,
there's some
which is much
housing
more
types that, you know,
Much more
that
aggressive.
would
I
be
mean, they were
worthwhile to
allowing,
consider.
you know,
Quads,
6 units.
And
yeah.
to what
Well,
extent
that-
is what
That
this
was
is talking
because their
about.
goal really was
So I would be
early,
curious
and
to
if you
know if
remember
you were in
when
a voting
Jenny
position,
Schwartz
you
came
know,
and talked to us, like, you
Yeah.
don't
how you
achieve
would
that
assess
affordability until you
allowing
get to like
duplex or
6,
triplexes by right.
like a 6-plex. That's when you actually see more affordable. And so that was the reason
Right.
that
Right, because the unit size goes
Academically, that
down.
may be
Yeah.
correct, but the
I
reality
would,
is,
I
I mean, it
would
was
rate that as a,
see what
no
happened.
better than a 3, just because
All the lawsuits and everything. But I kind of
market
suspect that if they had
forces
just
will
stopped
make
with
those
the
duplexes and triplexes still fairly
There've been a lot of
expensive
grumbling.
in
Would it have accomplished the goal?
Would
I
be
guess it
helpful.
sounds like.
No,
It would-
well, not all at once. There would have been, you know,
2 or
things
3.
left to accomplish, but
Oh.
that would have got them
Anything else,
started.
Yeah, it's more
absent
realistic.
mandate.
Because right now, they
Yeah.
got stopped. I mean, it's like,
Build triplexes.
Right, and I just think like, you know, we are
Many square feet.
like Arlington in some ways, but in other ways we're
Park
not.
Avenue
I always
townhouse.
joke that we're like, we're sandwiched between Fairfax and Arlington and sort of like
Success.
politically, culturally, we're sort of like
Small
also
units
kind of
built in.
split a little bit to slightly,
So, I
you
don't
know,
know, that-
some days we're a little more
that's why I'm
urban, some days we're a little more suburban, and I think the people that live here,
I'm putting a 3 down
at least in the
for
R1A and R1B neighborhoods, you know, still have a
Down this
mindset
road.
that's
And-
generally
and
suburban.
literally, I'm having a
a
problem.
lot of
with that.
Arlington is like that too, though.
A lot of North
It says
Arlington's like that. I
letter
mean, not of all of
A, it
Arlington's
says,
like that, but I think,
on
you
a
know,
scale of 1 to
Arlington,
5,
like, just
1 being
politically, like,
prohibitive or
you know, there's a
prohibitive
big,
or
they have more of a
impossible,
baked in,
and a 5
you know,
being
like.
fully
They have more
legal and
urban
easy.
areas.
And
Yeah,
then here we're
exactly, and they
saying,
have
what is
a
more
population
significant to
that's
you?
more
Is it
heavily
least
slanted towards
significant on your
renters
list?
and,
Is it more
you
significant
know,
on
apartment
your list?
dwellers and
Yeah.
condo and townhouse
Just
dwellers and
like,
people that were
so
really,
what-
you know,
what-
maybe advocating to
what's
be able
the
to have more
criteria?
options. And,
One,
you know, whereas here, we have some of that, and we've changed now, where our percentage of people, multifamily is much higher than it's ever been. It's approaching 50-50 now.
How
more.
impact.
But still, I think, you know,
And it's a difference.
although you see though, it's
So
sort of
we have 2 columns.
at the sort of level
Yeah,
of who sort of is
I
involved in
certainly-
city politics and who's
On the
involved.
easy scale,
It's
it
still
would be
more, you know, it's mostly
close to one.
R1A and B residents,
Not easy.
which is interesting, you
Very
know?
difficult.
And so I don't know, I just think that number one is fraught with
Triplexes.
difficulty, you know, so if we're rating it based on this scale, like, to me, I think
What should
it's,
happen,
you know,
but
it would be very difficult to just, to
people
make it
would lose
by
their
right,
jobs
with the
over
way it's
that.
worded here. I just, to me,
Why
I
don't we
think,
look at it that way?
I think it's a 2 at best.
Break it down between
In Falls Church, in
easy
today's
it is to
climate,
implement
you
and
know.
then how.
I know, I mean, I know me and I know all my neighbors, and I just
Well,
know,
let's put it on-
none of them are,
Two
you know,
numbers.
everyone,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
the, I
that's
don't know, it's
what-
kind of like the
I'm
contradiction
putting-
I
here,
think they're
right?
gonna
I think
be
almost everyone, you know,
opposed to
it's pretty liberal and progressive, but also affluent, and, you know, generally, you know, like certain big picture things, but you bring it down to your block,
3 as impact.
and it starts to get a little real and a little sticky, and a little bit
number one.
like, oh.
Number
wait a
one.
second.
That's just me, though. I mean,
I like that in theory, but maybe not
Have their own
necessarily.
numbers, or do you
Right.
want a group?
Everybody has their
If it
own
sounds
number.
okay, like, I want more
Okay.
people to be able to buy houses and live places, but if you're telling me the house next to me is gonna turn
There's a
into a
lot of land
triplex,
that's already used.
I don't know about that, you know, and I don't know, I just, I mean, I think it's.
Most
People
of it
are
is,
familiar with it
There's
too.
very little that
It's
you're
not a
gonna-
presence.
Right, you know, what we can point to show what that
Yeah.
might be. There are great, I mean, listen, there are examples,
Yeah. Yeah,
region
that's
and
true.
nationally that you can, that are very well
My
done.
perspective is,
You know, and just, you know, but obviously that's why I'm saying if you make it by right, there's no guarantee it will be well done. You could have a developer
I
come
don't
in
know that
and
we're making any of those
you know.
assumptions. though.
No, I know, I'm just
Oh, yeah,
going by what
sorry,
it
That is
says.
the recommendation.
Yeah,
is the by
yeah,
right.
is the by
Yeah.
right, so that's what I
have
mean.
a,
So that's why I
even
ranked
though
that.
it may not be
as I
as
did.
You started with Brent's a 2. What are you?
like Austin, Texas.
Well,
I'm gonna take an
I'm the
average.
same thing. I mean,
Still-
personally, I'd be
still
happy
have
to
a
see it happen, but I know that if we tried to go out, if council went out with a proposal to do this, it would just,
To be tarred and
So on
feathered.
I
the
don't have any
impossible to
problem
easy
saying it's
scale
3
that we have, you feel like it's
I think we have to take smaller steps to move towards that goal.
We should address these issues.
Yeah, no,
Exactly what that
by
is.
definition,
If you did this
we're
Throughout all
engaging on these
R1A,
issues. I mean,
R1B.
many people
by
would
right,
look at all
I
these
think
choices and say, I don't want to do any of those things.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
want to have nothing to do with anything you're even talking about. Don't even put it down on a piece of paper.
It's a 4 or 5 from an
So-
effectiveness standpoint,
so-
but a
So what about
1 or
permitting
2 from an
backyard
actual, like
cottages?
how much,
That's now-
how much value are we going to
Based
get
on your scale, that's 5 because
based on the
it's
amount of
done.
effort it's
Right.
Yeah, I think that's
Get there.
accessory
Yeah, in terms of
dwelling
like
units, so
moving
that
the
was-
needle on.
Well, I wouldn't
Because
give us
there
a
are
5, I'd
existing
give us a
structures
4
on all
because,
these
you know,
lots,
we
and so then-
compromised.
Right, like our neighbors are rebuilding their
Number of
house, right? Like if
applications
they
we're
decided to
receiving.
move and sell their house and they
Limited,
sell
and
it
they have
for
to
whatever
do
the
with
value of the land
setbacks
is.
and height restrictions that we
$800,000
impose.
or whatever it is these days.
But I mean, but in terms of the
Spending $1 million
cottages,
to build a duplex, then
I
you gotta
mean,
sell each of
are we,
them for.
we're not talking about the accessory units at this
2,
point.
Really?
Cottages.
We're doing that.
Backyard?
Yeah, backyard cottages
Okay.
would be accessory
Okay.
dwelling.
I
So-
assumed that was
0.5
accessory.
million.
And you're operating from today's
Affordable, is that
standpoint.
crazy?
Okay,
So it'd
backyard
be going
cottages
back and
The thing
making
is,
further.
to me, is there a lot of different
are the
ones.
Most
accessory,
recently
okay.
approved.
And
All right.
on
Amount of supply and
impactful,
supply of
you
different
know,
kinds of units.
Bob's right, I mean,
So the
nothing,
people give
no
choice
one
in
thing
sort
that
of
we
houses that they
do.
might be able to
Yeah, and-
achieve,
and-
but there's also the
Except you're a
affordability.
little
goals,
bit.
And
that's
it's the
two
other
things.
question, is that
Hardly
any new,
anything
even if,
higher
let's say it's a
than
luxury townhome, that does
2 or
create
3 on that score.
older
Yeah.
townhomes or
But
older homes.
since we
with
do
that
have
down
something in
value. So, like,
place
it doesn't have to be
and-
that these new homes are super affordable, but
gonna
if
give
they're
it a
so
3.
unaffordable that it, like, people aren't moving out.
So what you're saying is none of these are gonna move the needle.
I
Does
don't
it
know.
solve it?
Yeah.
Or they're increasing,
So-
I don't
Or
know, the
the
market
older
forces
townhomes.
are.
And what you're saying
they're
is,
increasing- they're
this is
raising
not our
the-
context at
Yeah,
all.
I would say,
Yeah.
Out of context, I
in
think.
the concept of,
Talking about
like us
stuff
leaving tonight, I do say that it's, I have 2 or,
community input.
2 sounds right.
I don't know, by
All of
right.
the factors
for
that go into that,
duplexes,
not
I
just the-
think
You're also a 2?
it's important to have our.
It's a practicality, yeah. Not as a.
From the
policy
fully legal
design.
easy
It
to
does,
prohibitive.
it does,
Okay.
Well,
as you're
I'm
right.
more optimistic, I would be a 3, but I will go with 2.
Oh, 2.5? Well, 2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
I can't have.
Guess fractions are
I
permitted.
could have.
Okay.
We're just making it up as we go.
There's no rules against
You
that.
say, you know,
Okay.
All
somebody-
right, so, and
I
the
think we
proven
can-
backyard cottages,
Duplexes
like,
and triplexes
fully
by
legal,
right.
easy. It was not
But
easy, but
could be
it
a lot
is
of
now
people.
fully
It is
legal
now.
in the city, so.
We might
Staff
want-
did a good job.
Yeah, I thought so. It was an
Backyard
easier
cottages,
conversation
a
than.
lot easier to do, yeah.
Or something like that.
Something like that, but it
Should we
says
get
by
rid of it?
right.
But yeah,
So
how
it's-
many have
The
we?
accessory
And so I think
Yeah.
the drill,
We got one in August,
when I suggested this.
and it kind of along the lines of the spirit of is the juice worth the
If
squeeze.
not this.
When you
then
get these delicate and politically challenging
duplexes
items,
and triplexes
what ends up
by right.
happening is all the negotiations that happen behind the scenes that led to an approval initially sound really appealing, but what you've really done is make them so difficult to attain. They begin to lose their marketability because they're just not being,
Focus groups and.
which is a consequence of the grand
I
compromise that
feel
was
like this is out of place
We
right
almost had one in my
I
neighborhood,
agree with you.
corner
You
of
got a
Walnut
community with it.
and Lincoln.
Also interesting.
Joey Dow almost did
You
one.
know, actually
But
walk
I
around.
don't know, I mean, it still might happen. He sold the property to, to
Sort of
one
a
person,
starting
but there's a
point.
lot of room in the back to do an ALU, ADU. Owners
I think if you-
may do it at some point, but it
You
hasn't
have to
happened.
put something in front
Yeah.
of the community.
All right, so how do we want to rate this one?
Well, and I think
Feels like a
our-
1
our
because we just
planning
did it and
staff
the
is very
additional
good at
work
putting
on it
stuff in
wouldn't
front of
drive
the
any,
community
like,
to get their
sorry.
input
Well, I think it's
on
done.
It's done.
Yeah,
like,
so maybe it's more
I
like
don't
a
think-
NA.
I don't
retrospective.
think we have to
Yeah.
run around
Yeah.
that by
NA probably
right,
feels
and
more
I
appropriate.
think
Fun way,
But like,
yeah.
how effective do we
touching
think
a
it
third rail.
feel like it was? The amount of work that we put into it.
when you start putting by right on.
It was a
I
start.
don't disagree with that.
Well, this is getting back to where you were talking about on the land use, scoping
And the
it.
state may,
You know,
I don't know,
what's
may make it
the
legal across the whole Commonwealth.
Limit on the right, what's the limit on the left?
Yeah.
And so,
Pretty much
this
make it by right.
discussion, if this is something you want to talk about in the community,
bit.
you've got to establish like you say, the limits on that, and if you even want to
I think it
discuss
ranks
it
actually
through the
pretty high.
community.
like,
Zeros on that.
How doable it is,
Yeah.
fully easy. We basically
We did it, yeah, yeah.
Those of us who are
It's 4?
twos will.
I was gonna say a
realize, wow.
4.
Yeah, 'cause it's legal and
it was
it's by
done.
right. We just have
It was
some rules
not
about it.
super easy, but it's also not been all that effective
City
yet.
housing goals were to have a range.
All right, I'm gonna make it a 4. Legalized starter homes, how accommodating would you say current regulations are towards building new starter homes in Falls Church? So I
Very well
was
meaning.
trying to find
But this
sort
is
of
very
like Strong Town's case
in the
for
fact
what
that
they
it
mean by
becomes
legalized
exclusionary
starter
to
homes.
Right.
About smaller lots, too.
It is about smaller lots,
It
yeah.
starts to.
I think that's hard.
Heavy lift.
Minimum,
Focus that
and there's also
conversation
some
to these
market just
localities have
doesn't-
minimum house size
Yeah, that's the bigger
requirements.
problem.
Instead of
The land value is
Excessive,
so high.
excessive setbacks.
Yeah.
to allow.
Part of our problem is the land values are so high.
Unique
I mean, we
ideas
have starter homes,
and a
they're the
new way of
older,
doing
original
something, which
home, and
would
now, of
come
course, the
through
prices
in
are skewed now,
special
but like, you
exception
know, you think of the
process,
smaller,
right?
original, like post-World War
I
II
think that
homes
if
that
we
still
leave
exist,
the-
or,
if we
you know, the 2 and
leave
3
the
bedroom,
land use
one and
chapter
2 bath
in a
homes
more
that are still in
general
the
way,
city,
I
but
think
the prices have gotten
this
so
is
crazy that,
guiding
you know,
it
the land values are so
to a
high that those were getting torn
specific
down,
idea.
although what's
The
interesting
buy
is
right
that,
is dead on her
I don't know,
own.
maybe it's just anecdotal, I feel like in the
You're
last
scoring
2
two.
to 3
No,
I just
years,
see
I've seen
this whole thing as
I've seen
kind of
fewer
like-
being
Okay, well,
torn
maybe the
down
whole
and
thing is
more
dead on her own, but that one in
of like
particular
existing
is.
housing
For my
stock.
backyard
like,
cottages, I
whereas,
got
like,
4
I feel like it used to be
on
like, you know,
degree of
they're all just
difficulty.
immediately torn down.
Actually started.
Yeah.
You know, now some of the
3
things
on
are
the
being
impact.
saved that
Legalizing
torn
starter
down, and they're a
homes.
little bit
I'm
smaller
curious
like
about
GFA
this. I don't know.
and square footage.
I don't know.
Somehow
Which makes the price a
forcing
little bit
the
better,
market
but
to
it's
build
not quite a
houses
starter
that
home. I
cost
don't know.
There's the smaller size house, but I was wondering if part of this was kind of like what they allow down in Houston.
Yeah,
Houston
you
allows
probably
very
would
small
change
lots.
Yeah.
your
You
code
know,
or
Yeah.
3,000 square feet.
accommodate your code.
Yeah,
to
and our
include
minimum is 7,500.
prefabricated,
Yeah, so
offsite
obviously that would be a
constructed,
heavy
you know,
lift.
like Sears houses basically work.
Because even on small lots here, that we build a very big, expensive home.
Yeah,
The
but
Brent
townhouse
said-
lots are tiny, and you're building
So that was
1.something million, so.
considered highly
I don't know, it's all about
acceptable
square footage. If you can
Oh,
build
yeah.
a lot of
Now,
square
if you
footage
tried
on
to
the
put
lot,
manufactured
you know, that's what
houses,
realtors will tell you, like, a big yard is great, it helps, but it's all about square
There'd be a
footage. If you
huge
build a lot of
to-do
square
about it,
footage of
but there's nothing
livable
wrong with
space,
those houses.
it's gonna make the price go way up.
When I lived in Arlington, we lived near, we called it Skinny House, because
Yeah.
it was on this very narrow lot, and it was
If you're gonna
like,
spend 700.
12 feet wide.
yeah, 12 feet wide and like 4
$1,000
stories.
for a
and
lot.
then with a
Yeah, they
roof
do
deck.
allow some of those.
You're not gonna put a starter home.
Yeah, so I think you just have to.
That's where the market
If you want these to be
That's where
starter
the market
homes,
forces
it's
come in,
one
but you
thing
have to allow somebody the
limit the
flexibility
lot size, but then you also
Okay,
have
so
to
I'm putting
to
3 for
make that
that.
decision for
The building size.
on their land.
3 as something that,
And we
you
saw, I
know,
think,
we could have
hard
a
to do.
conversation about it without the room blowing up.
I mean, we
Those
kind of
rules.
accomplished that with the
Without Sharon threatening to
Well,
jump out
and
the window.
starter homes, like, is it?
I guess you gotta be relative, like, what's a starter house in this,
I think it
Northern
can,
Virginia?
I think it can take
inside the
many,
Beltway,
it
like,
really
what's a
is
starter
the,
house? I don't know,
the
it's, again, it's a map, you know,
core,
we're, obviously, you know, small,
pieces
the
of
wider
it are,
market, and so, the idea of a
the second-
starter
that
house,
second
I mean, you look at the
paragraph
median
there,
incomes
small
here, I mean, what's
affordable
a starter, I
homes
guess a
typically
starter house
for
might be
first-time home buyers.
something
So
like a
however you sort of
family of 3
envision
or
that,
4,
whether that's
you know,
prefab, whether
just
that's
the bride could
Smaller
newly
home,
built
yeah,
brick,
or-
Well,
home,
it's,
stick
it's
built.
median
actually
salary, you know,
connected
I don't
to the
know,
next
it
item
gets
below it,
tricky, like
reducing
how,
minimum lot size.
what we would need, yeah, I
Market
would say
is
we're not
never
doing a
going to
great
build
job of producing those.
$750,000 single-family detached house
you know,
in Falls
but-
Church. It's never going to
I don't
happen.
know, get the.
It's a struggle because
We allow on a
every
quarter
time I
acre
bring
lot,
this up, it's just,
2 of them.
it's a mood killer.
Then-
So I just
For 3.
Or 3, but certainly 2.
So they tried in Charlottesville.
But
Trying
anyway,
to
so
solve
I'm
something
legalizing starter homes,
to a
if we-
degree is
if we
never
did
gonna be
it, it would,
solvable in a
I think, have a
capitalist
pretty good
society.
chance of being
Nobody goes into housing
significant.
to do the
I
right
would give
thing.
that a 4 on this.
It's all an investment. And at the end of the day, that's what people are,
No,
you know, they have to recoup their investment.
What
There
about
has to be a return on it.
What about
Yeah, they'll
removing?
be
These proposals question.
collected.
Don't worry, we're gonna buy an ad in the paper
So,
and put a.
To your
Charge
point, at the end of
Freelander
the day,
insists
that
that
has
we
to be
have
penciled
by right
out.
for
Nobody's gonna
trailers.
participate in this.
By right trailers.
investment.
Don't bring out my bad
And they would just
political.
take them into, like, how do I make that?
Don't bring out.
They're in the issue. Without them on the table, I can't do anything.
Remove
Not creating a
Don't
town from
bring out bad
scratch.
Phil here.
It's all
Right,
We are
affordable
recorded
housing
here
is by
now,
design.
so-
Bureaucracy and regulation that goes along with it method, which adds to the
Good dis-
cost
it's a
and
good
the
discussion to
financing
have.
to do it,
Moving
make the deals
minimum
work.
lot
Yeah, it's
size.
actually very, very difficult.
From the
But I think the
R1
land value, the problem is in Northern Virginia, as long as like the demand to live in the region is still so
See,
high.
this is where I.
The current administration, who the heck knows what's gonna happen, people don't wanna leave, but,
Perhaps
you know, the demand is so
these
high,
are
so to
sort
live
of
close in, you know, at Falls Church, we're so well located in the region that the land here is just so valuable, and our school
But
system. It's hard to
allowing
produce
for
cheaper
variances in
homes without,
size.
right, government subsidy, and there's only, there's a
Something like
very
that.
small limit of what we can do. So it's hard. I would say it's very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to provide starter homes. We can provide affordable units, but you're talking about like producing like small, single-family homes that aren't townhouses. I don't know, or maybe they're townhouses.
Well, we
that
did
do
that.
It's
something.
11,250
Yeah, which is true.
for R1A.
Although they weren't affordable
and
though, right?
7,500
It's all
for
relative.
R1B.
850, I mean, they're
And
less.
duplex, I guess, goes
Does
down
they sell them
to,
for 850 or do they
I
sell?
want to
I
say,
think that one just went on the market for like 875 or
5,000 or
something.
something around there.
Railroad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
So how many bedrooms are in those?
Removed,
3, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
two, with
not have
possibility
those
of
minimum
three.
lots.
There was like
Yeah.
one that I toured that had an upstairs
Yeah.
bedroom. I think it depended on the.
So I don't know. I would say 2 or 3
well, I think,
for number 3.
you know, there's some
Okay.
lots still around.
3, wow.
I mean, there's some lots
Maybe.
I
that,
was hearing a 2 out of you.
You know,
What other people?
that if you reduced it, you could
Number-wise.
create an additional lot out of it.
Based on the
So
conversation.
how many, we did a survey, remember when they had those
You don't know?
split lots, and then we went
But
and
I can go
discussed
with
that, analyzed that, then we
It's sort
passed
of
an
the
ordinance
same-
and had all
same thing,
those
like it's a-
multiple lots combined.
All of these things,
Probably
are
should
good. I'm
not have
not
done that.
discounting them as
Probably
good
should have
ideas.
allowed
I think that they are good ideas
split lot
and do a lot.
developments to continue.
I don't know how feasible and practical they are with the cost of housing.
One house.
Yeah, in this area.
Yeah.
All right, are we,
Like you said,
2.5?
You could argue that, yeah. But at the same time, I mean, I know some cases where, you know, people are short
Minimum lot sizes.
1,000 feet or something, they could get a second lot, you know, and then sell off,
Yeah.
get some money, you know, and somebody else could build a house
I don't know if it
next
does
to
in
them.
Falls Church. I
I
don't know,
mean,
it's
there's
interesting
a bunch
because
of those around the city.
I don't know. I mean,
That could, you know, with
R1A,
a little smaller lot size could actually do that.
I think this is getting more in towns that have like
Grading system, I would
you know,
say.
half
that
acre,
would be a
acre zoning,
Difficult conversation
you know,
to
which we
have,
don't
so it's
have.
in the
I mean, you know,
Yes.
R1A is what,
Two category.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
Quarter
that are
acre, I mean, you know,
tied to
R&B
this
is like quarter acre. I don't know. So our lot sizes are
Tied to
already
infrastructure of utilities.
small, you know? I mean,
Sanitary,
I don't know.
storm.
True.
So I would, but I think
Tree
removing minimum lot
canopy.
sizes, I mean, again, it's
With our tree
a
canopy, once we start
legislative
splitting all
or
of these
politically,
into
it'd be probably,
smaller
it's a
lots,
hot, it
right?
becomes
Like
very
the
difficult.
smaller,
Because then you're inducing all kinds of
residential lots.
subdivisions for
Once you
more,
split those,
more,
the
you
trees
know.
are gone.
If you,
And so
if
I
by
think
removing the lot sizes now, you're inducing a
that
bunch of,
needs
you
to
know,
be
subdivisions
coupled
and,
with this.
you know, new
There's-
lots. I don't know,
it's good
it's not
to
so
want
simple for
things,
us. I
but
don't
at
know,
what
because we're so
price
built
are we
out.
willing to
Well,
pay?
that's exactly right.
We don't
That
have
goes
that
And what
extra.
can, what
Oh, yeah.
can we do?
Most of our houses take up a lot, portion of our land area anyway. Like,
Chapter.
Well, this
there's
says
a lot of-
remove minimum.
Neighborhood
Yeah.
concerns.
Eliminate minimum lot size requirements.
No, that would mean like there's no minimum lot size, so like now the minimum lot size is
Is
in
whatever you
R1A
want it
is,
to be.
is, right, is whatever
I want to
it is,
spin off,
Sidewalks.
7,500
All sorts of
Yeah.
square
policies.
feet, so now you can do anything you want. You can
Now
carve
we're
out
mostly
4,000
focused
square
on
foot lot,
commercial
you know?
corridors that would be focused.
We have other regulations, so it's not, it's again, we have other bulk regulations that might
About whether
help to control what would happen, but
sidewalks on every
you
street.
know, would induce
It doesn't
some people to
seem odd that
subdivide.
everywhere else in town,
Like in R1A especially, where you would see
killing
it,
for sidewalks.
you know,
Like my
people
next
be
door
trying to,
neighbor, we've
on
got
older
to have a
homes.
sidewalk.
People would just subdivide, people with older houses, like, you know, they
Lived
would
there
tear down the old
45
house and
years with
subdivide.
a sidewalk on one side of
The
the
two
street.
lots
Life
are
goes
very
on.
valuable, you can make a lot of
But
money,
people in
taking what was
Broadmoor,
once your one house on one
post
lot,
sidewalks on all
now
those
you
streets.
got two.
Yeah, that happened a lot. Where you live?
Yeah, because it was already platted that
It is
way, so
also
you
where
saw that
everybody's
as the land
walking
values got high
to-
enough.
I know,
Metro
even though
in the
people
That's
are
an
walking
interesting,
in.
because those houses,
Yeah.
those lots go back 100 years, but
I know, yeah.
they weren't even built on.
And they don't want to get out of the street either.
I know, they
The
don't want
original
that.
vision for them
They don't want
was
sidewalks.
Yeah.
for them
They
to be
want to
narrow
Right.
or long.
Okay,
Yeah,
I go there every day.
I'm trying-
I got my wife.
I'm trying to
They
keep
could have
up
been
my
built that
side.
way in the 50s, but they
Repeal
weren't. You know, they
parking
built one
mandates.
house
Oh,
on
Lord,
two,
talk
because that
about
was like all
controversial.
man was for
What-
it.
Less dense.
what did you-
Right, and then by the 90s,
I
and
put
and
3 and a
especially
1.
accelerated
I
after
put
that,
3 for
people-
impactful and 1
What
for
was it,
like
tens?
Degree of
Yeah,
almost
the value, land value got so high
Two
that
for degree of
it was
difficulty,
super valuable
three
to now
for
build the
impact.
two houses, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I just don't think, again, that's politically very feasible, so
Number
I'm
five.
I think
repeal
I'm a low number on
parking
that.
removing is
mandates.
definitely not feasible, maybe reducing.
So, right now, our parking mandates
I mean, it's
require.
Even the R1A, you know, but I think
Arlington's minimum, smallest minimum lot size
What do we
looks like it's
repeal?
5,000,
yeah.
according to ChatGPT. That's significantly, it's 50%
Would face a lot of
smaller
opposition.
than ours.
That's the problem.
None at all.
with Strong towns, so it's all or nothing. It's like, boom.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it would face a lot of opposition. I think
And that would have
politically speaking, it'd be very, very
impact.
difficult. I wouldn't
I
want
mean,
the
this could
person
be
knocking on
for
doors to talk about
single family or the multifamily.
in the
Yeah,
RA
I'm
or
assuming
being,
you know,
this
what
vertical.
do I
broad
need a
enough
city council person knocking on doors explaining,
includes both.
yeah, we're looking to
Usually
do
it's
this.
focused on multifamily.
What is that gonna mean? Because, you know, we think about this stuff all the time, you
If you
know?
want
The average
affordable
person, as we know,
housing
like our friends and
on
neighbors who
Park
are
Avenue,
involved in other
where-
professions, they're not usually thinking about this.
Well,
We're trying to have a bigger policy.
Right, and then you tell them this could happen on their street and like, you know, I don't
65
know, it's gonna get a lot of
provide no parking.
puzzled looks, a lot of like, what's
Why would
what's
you
that
do
gonna
that?
mean? Right, why would we wanna do that on my street? And,
All right, so how are
you
we
know,
scoring this
Meeting
particular
back
one?
When we were debating T-zones.
I'm scoring it low. I'm scoring it like also with two,
A 2.
one or two, and near to
One or
impossible.
two.
Mistakes, you know. I mean,
Again, I don't know where we're gonna get a 5 on any of these.
Oh, we're
Based
getting
on-
there.
On the challenges that it, like.
Which is telling you.
Streamline approvals. Number 6, we might be getting a higher
Streamline
score.
approvals?
Yeah, we might get
Impact.
State legislature's doing it for us.
we might get a
I don't know if it
higher
moves the
ranking on
needle.
that.
Truthfully.
The
All
impact
right,
is.
5, repeal parking mandates. Compared to other regulations,
Attracts people
how
who don't
significantly
own
do
cars.
minimum
And
parking
puts feet
requirements
on the
present a
ground,
challenge
puts
to the city
business
reaching
in the
its
buses and
Housing.
transits. It puts
Well, we only
bicycles
require
in
one
the
parking
easy.
spot, don't we? For our single family detached?
That's it.
Yeah, but, and then I guess, are we wrapping in multifamily in this too? In this
Yeah,
one?
we are. That's
For
true, that's true.
Parking.
Or
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like we've been pretty flexible on that. That's more doable.
get
Like
around
we've
on your
have,
own.
All right.
there's been an appetite
What did
to
you say?
attack
How
that,
easy?
Yeah.
you know, parking
I put one.
mandates. And I think we've been out in front of that more so than on other things.
But how much is it impacting, like, I mean, I think it has an impact absolutely on,
Yeah.
I'd like to hear
what
what this
can,
would
is feasible to be built, right?
Right.
People have to dig.
Let me ask you,
Sure.
this. What if
Huge
it
giant
was
garages
instead
to-
of one house, one
And not that
car
they're not gonna do
per
that, right? The market is still gonna
occupied?
provide housing for
It
the,
was,
for the
you change it
units.
instead of repeal.
And the amenities and commercial
0.9
spaces, people
Oh,
need to be
yeah,
able to
per
park.
dwelling.
I'm-
Would that be an easier sell?
Sure.
I'd
It
rank
would
it
not be
higher.
Yeah, I mean, it's a-
mandated.
well,
I'd put it like at a
It
4.
should be,
Four.
but
It's
no.
very doable.
No.
Still
You
not,
know,
I
we're
mean-
already doing
I-
it
I
in some
don't-
ways.
That's
It
just
seems
my
like
opinion,
there hasn't been
that's
too
what
much
I'm asked to put
pushback,
down here.
you know, on
And
that.
we are much more wedded
You
to
all
our
agree
cars.
with
Not
that
yet.
four?
Maybe in his neighborhood. I don't know what's going on in Ellison Street.
No.
Sounds like things are a little dicey over there with the pizza deliveries. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no pushback on that until there's a
Coffee
push.
bakery people,
Completely
You're
happy.
gonna abstain from that vote?
They keep parking in front of my house.
getting their croissants blocking your house,
They-
yeah.
Yes, that is.
Please
exactly
offer you a
what's happening.
croissant when they
I know,
come
they
out,
could, like,
open
cup
the
of
box
coffee,
up, say,
something
hey.
like that.
I was.
12 pack of donuts. No, I think like you come back to the North Side Social conversation.
Now that
I
I'm
got
older,
rid of all the
I'm not
parking
going
minimums there.
Yeah.
And it was a fight
You
for
get in the car
years.
during rush hour.
So-
Know that it lasted that long, and they were right across the
That's the
street
day,
from
there's
the
no traffic
like
on the
sea of
streets.
city 2-hour parking, and we added parking on the street, so.
There's some of the surrounding
I don't
commercial
know.
owners were rumbling.
25 years.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, I found that, again, like, it's not the end of the world, like
But
you
it's
said.
stabilized, like, the market
did
worked it
figure
out.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't, I don't know that I'm a 4, because I don't think it comes with all of the,
So I put
not
that as
as,
one.
I don't think it will be as easy for
difficulty
things.
high.
Let's say there's, like, let's say Economize was actually a restaurant.
Streamline, does this
And
fall
we
into
decided,
your-
or a mixed use type of thing.
Streamline.
We said minimum, we're gonna reduce all the minimum parking needs, and then you got people parking
Permit
on,
approval, oh, this is the
which
permits.
I forget what they
I
is.
Spring.
don't know
Spring,
much
thank you.
about this.
I don't know, but I.
We got
I
people
almost
parking on
feel like
Spring the
we
whole
need to
time, and then you got a bunch of people angry about
permitting
people parking on
process
Spring.
alive for life
Or they're
safety.
thinking of.
Public
I
safety.
think
Yeah, I
that
mean,
it's a 3 for me
I don't
because
wanna
of
just
the,
see
I think
people going
it will be
all
a
sideways on that, so.
continual discussion after the thing is
It's not-
done.
It's the same.
That will take up people's time, take
Yeah.
up.
But the
Well, there's
question
also philosophical
doesn't
discussion about,
really
like, the
align
purpose
with that. It just
of
says compared
the
to other
public
regulations, how
street
significantly do
right away.
current permit
Do
approval
the
processes and
homeowners that
timelines.
live
Oh, that's,
on
yeah,
streets.
that Phil has
It's not
told me.
talking about
Yeah,
how we
alright.
get
Public
streamlined,
street, people
it's
get to park
asking
in
the
public street.
question.
Yeah, and we can sign it for
It's
particular
observing
length of
that
time.
they are a challenge to the city. I
Permit
mean,
parking
I
in,
certainly
like, there are
get
ways that you can manage
question is,
parking,
There's something
but
going on
sort
in
of
the
just
permitting
saying
process that
only residents
makes
can
it
park
harder
here.
to do.
I'm not
I don't know if it's the only residents can park there. There's more parking here, and it is more crowded, and it is less
Hurdles
safe
that
to
you
walk.
had to jump through to
Especially
do
on
that
streets.
before we did the cottage.
Like, that is the argument, right? And it's a fair argument,
Dwelling ordinance
even if it's not.
enormous. It was practically impossible.
Or let's say you wanted.
So I was
to
gonna
have a
vote
site
for
plan.
like 5 on this, but
But
you all are.
but this is so
are
general,
4,
though.
a 3.
I can compromise it, like
Like, I could say, I've gotten permits approved.
What
like
were you,
these
what was your
comfortable with
renovation.
four.
edge? 4.
So,
Really?
yeah.
All right, I tried. All right, I'm writing
We've done
four
two
down.
I wrote four
Oh, you got it, okay.
process.
All right, streamlined approvals. I feel like
That was
this
a
is not
process.
necessarily our area as much as.
Because of the age of our house, you know, the
Mine is
basement
already
height
heard.
wasn't up to standard, and basically,
Terms of
this guy had to
projects going
duck
to
a
the
little, and
designated-
Exactly, the state took that out of our hands. We just streamlined it big time.
We did, like,
Yeah.
the
Look at
city, the
And
Richmond
then,
did it
but
for
like,
us.
as far as like permit process,
Cypress
I don't
takes
have, we don't have
into
any sort of, oh, that's a city.
I think it's relative to what you're trying to do,
It's not really relevant to our.
Yeah, it's funny because I think
so
there's
it's
so much
its
publicity
impact on housing.
assigned to that simple step, what is a much bigger process.
I don't think so.
And how if you even pose the question of
decided
streamlining to everything else that has to happen before and after the site plan's approved.
These questions were meant to be vague to bring out these
getting
different
the regular-
perspectives, and depending on, what area of focus.
The headache that it
you approach
causes.
a question
In
from.
the city, I don't know, we're not that, we're small, so like, I feel like we can only be bureaucratic to a point. I mean, I feel like developers, like, they have a direct line to like all the people that are actually making the decisions here, it's not like in a big bureaucracy like where I work, where like things can get bogged down,
I don't think so.
layers and disagreeing departments here, like everyone's in the
I
same
think
room.
right
I think the
now,
market
the
demand is
market-
strong
There's a
enough that
problem,
they're
work it out pretty
gonna do
quick
just
here.
fine.
The buzz about
And our
that
process, it seems to be, I don't know, maybe, developer, I don't hear a lot of developers complaining about our process. I mean,
there are a lot of
I feel like, as you said, we're pretty like solutions oriented, like things come up, like we've
I don't
gotten like
know.
all these developments online,
Depends on your-
West Falls, I mean, I feel like we're generally solutions oriented when things come up, like even this thing with the fish
And I don't think the
taco.
low that
I
we're
mean, I have my
seeing right
opinions
now
on it, but the bottom line is it came up and it seemed like you guys kind of, worked it out in a relatively short period of time and now they're open, so, I don't know, that's pretty streamlined to me.
So we don't think.
I will use this opportunity to highlight the report that's going to be
lost
coming
track
out
of
later this month.
okay, so
I
impactful.
don't think we're in
To
agreement
Look at
on
our
some of it.
processes.
Yeah,
Impactful.
I'm just gonna give you my thing.
what's that?
I'm still,
Yeah.
So you would
Or
rank
we-
this higher?
are we like?
I mean, how much of an impact do you think it
You
has?
don't have to put your name on it, but turn it into
I
Jack.
think.
I wouldn't rank it a
We're
5
gonna tell
if it
it.
accounted
Well, that's fine too.
for our inspection.
I agree with Bob on everything.
There you go.
Well,
It's really just meant to be an
All
exercise
that,
for
like the entire
conversation.
life
What are we,
cycle.
Yeah.
It's not directly
Like, those are the-
informing.
It's not going anywhere other
Where do we
than,
land on
Just-
numbers?
it's just internal informing to us.
Does this
And it's already
include
done.
change of use?
I said it was a 3, but.
Does it include what?
I
Probably
said it's
silent
the middle
on
of the
that.
road
So
to.
middle of the
I think
road.
it's, I think
Some
it's.
clarification.
I feel like that right now, if a business comes in, they want a new business
Yeah,
wants to take
People who
over.
feel very
If they have a
passionate.
different use, they've got to, go get,
You go door to door, you hear
As long as we have parking requirements, they do.
I mean, we're streamlining the site plan process now. 40 days.
There's been a
Where
lot
we're
of
denying
times
everything.
where such requests didn't go anywhere because the mere fact that they trigger
It's all
building code issues.
relative.
Building code is
And
very
I
specific
can see
about.
both sides of
the
the
type of-
coin.
Yeah.
And
It's
as
like they
much
live
as
in
I
a different
wanna
world in
believe the
terms of how they
best in
classify use
developers,
categories
I
versus
see the
zoning.
worst from
And
where I'm.
They don't have those
at, right?
negotiations.
So I'm
that
always
the
on the
state or
lookout for
county
like,
has.
well, how am I gonna
This-
find a loophole in here so I can do X, Y,
Yeah,
Z?
you
Like,
gotta go to
my other
city council.
codes.
And so that's kind of the
Right.
lens that I'm looking
Can't
at.
really do much for you. There's only so much interpretation there.
That's right.
If you want to have a kitchen, you need
people who are
a.
Yeah,
supportive of
yeah.
development.
A lot of
A lot of it is
times,
safety stuff.
and a lot of times we're dealing with legacy buildings that already needed
Most
maintenance.
tune
Now we're,
to
so.
developers who try to take shortcuts.
All right, so I heard a 5 on this one.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Why not?
I put,
We
I
gotta
put,
have one
Life
binding.
cycle
I put the
Let's go
score if it's a
wild.
life cycle, it's
Life
5.
cycle 5.
It's not binding, man, don't worry. We don't expect you
Yeah.
to fix it all.
Judging
Want to be cut.
the recommendations.
Oh, I guess we're not a strong town.
Okay.
Well, we are a strong town,
We're
but
working our way there.
this, I don't know, like, this organization's interesting, but they have their bent and,
Very hard.
I get
Well, they're
it.
an advocacy organization.
They are.
Advocacy organizations are
Exceptions.
they are more
right.
black and white.
It's a different
Yeah.
question.
To stimulate,
Yeah.
they get a lot of
Yeah,
conversations
and I
going.
think that's what
Maybe
the
not
purpose of this
Sort
conversation
of have a
was.
buzz, I don't know.
To kind of talk
They're pretty
through.
small, actually, but they get a lot of
They have
outsized
about
press.
6,500 members.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, as a group there, what they, as far as who runs it, like, it's a small group of people.
Is it that big? 6,500?
I think,
It's been growing the last couple of years. I know
That's
when I
different
first got
than eliminating.
Yeah.
attached to it, it was under 1,000.
They're kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're kind of like
wrapping up.
trendy, they came on
Yeah,
the
we're-
scene. But then, there have been other groups like them before,
So there's 2 council questions
Well, he
too.
appeals a lot
Yeah.
to
So
them.
Why don't we report out and then we'll do the survey.
I'm not
That'll be,
Reporting, but we had a
Fred,
few-
Wait, you have a number?
Based on
No,
what
we
you said,
didn't
that-
come to agreement on a lot of
Oh,
them.
no.
Yeah, we were like, oh, that was close.
Yeah,
We averaged ours.
We could have been done much earlier then.
we have numbers, but we didn't average
Probably
them.
the
Threatened Sharon that we were going to
Been there,
disclose her positions
Can't believe that's their big issue.
Oh, no.
Maybe we could move forward.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, well, do you guys want to just generally report out then, or?
What are we reporting? It's desirable and difficult, I think, is the takeaway on our end for all of them.
Yeah. What are your numbers? Read through your numbers.
They didn't get any
We
numbers.
they didn't agree.
Because
They're,
there's two
they're kind
different
of
scales.
low,
Like, one is-
they're like 1 to 3
Yeah.
one is
on
these.
average. Let's call it
They are
that.
different
There's some
and they're different
variation
housing
among
goals.
feasibility and.
So we
effective-
broke it up into two categories: degree of difficulty of doing these things, these 6 things, and the impact. So something can be extremely difficult, like allowing duplexes or triplexes by right. If it somehow happened, it would be quite impactful. So on the significant scale, it would be a 3. Not like the solution to everything, but. And the only one that did not have a really high degree of difficulty was permitting backyard cottages, because to some
Done
degree
that.
we've already done that.
Right.
And the impact of that we rated as a 3 because despite the fact that we worked on it, we haven't had a lot of takers for it. But still, we gave in terms of significance that a 3. Legalizing starter homes, I gave that a moderate level of difficulty and a high degree of impact, so 3 and 4. Removing minimum lot sizes, very challenging, moderately impactful. Repeal parking mandates, extremely difficult, and pretty highly impactful. And streamlining approvals, like, we're not really sure what that means, but moderately difficult to do, moderately impactful if we do it, but not all that impactful. Anyway, that's, take that as you will.
The only thing I would add is the discussion we were having here is these recommendations were framed in terms of absolutes. So repeal parking mandates, repealing parking mandates puts it in the category of extremely difficult. Modifying parking mandates. Reducing parking mandates makes it, duplexes and triplexes by right makes it very difficult.
We had the same observation that these are absolutes.
These are absolutes.
Yeah.
And but there could be some variability in those recommendations that would make them more acceptable to the community.
So I will go through these quickly. Allowing duplex or triplex by right, we had a score of 2.5. We're going to just invent scoring rubrics.
Wow,
in
you
the
broke it
process.
down to 10. So
There were some
that's
2s
10.
and
Creative
3s.
Very precise here.
We compromised.
Analytical minds.
But basically, it was the
Averaging.
the concept of we think it would have a high impact, but the cost or the cost involved in getting to people to buy in and getting these changes implemented would be very high. So the juice may not be worth the squeeze on that one.
Well, and the impact might be sort of spread out over a long period of time. We have a lot of existing structures in the city that people have to choose to kind of, or that, like, somebody redeveloping those houses would need to say, yeah, we're going to put a duplex or a triplex in.
Right. I'm not sure.
It's not a given.
Right. The cost of housing and the cost of land here may not be.
It's sort of a market.
Yeah, the market would have to have, right, like market would have to have more impact. Permitting backyard cottages, we scored a 4 because we just did this. So it doesn't, but doing additional work here probably doesn't have as huge an impact because of the changes that we might, but didn't see that. Legalizing starter homes, again, we had a 2.5. Similar concept with the cost of land and land prices in the area. Maybe not making, like, the value not making sense for the amount of, or the effort not making sense for the value that we get out of that work. Removing minimum lot sizes, we scored a 2. Again, to what Bob was saying, like removing makes this a much harder sell. Repealing parking mandates, we scored a 4. It is basically a philosophical differences about the purposes of public streets. Public streets are for parking for the public, and not necessarily for everybody, residents of the neighborhood.
So you guys gave that
Look, I almost abstained from this conversation.
so the 4 is a measure of significance,
Significant of the impact that it would have.
impact, but what
It would
what's
make
your-
it-
what's
it would
your
make
score
it-
on the difficulty of doing it?
I mean, you could just say it's not. I mean, like,
I think we already kind of do it. I
yeah,
mean, anytime.
we do it in all sort of
We're constantly reducing.
the special
what
exception plans.
required.
Or we were when we had that ability.
You're repealing
Repeal,
repealing
eliminate.
it here.
I mean, our conversation was in the context of just, letting a developer build 60 apartments on Park Avenue instead of 6 townhomes because we're not going to impose any parking
Right.
requirements.
Everybody parks on Park,
Yeah.
and it's just mass chaos
Or
and,
doesn't have a car.
or doesn't have a car.
Right, transforming the nature of the city because people would actually live here without cars.
It would be much denser.
I
And
live
it
here
would,
without a car. A lot of people do.
I don't know about a lot.
I think it was like 6%. I mean, well,
A lot.
that's a lot out of
You're
15,
such an optimist.
18,000.
You're such an
Yeah.
optimist.
so I think that would be highly impactful. I don't know if it's the right answer. Again, the scoring does not equal like recommendation or endorsement. It's not.
That's
but
why
it-
we came up with two scores.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we went with fractions. You guys went with 2 scores. Everybody's got their own independent scoring system.
Difficult group of people to work with. What about streamlining approval?
So we turned to the expert on the matter, and the answer was it would be a 5 if it incorporated the entire life cycle of the project. If it's just site planning, it's a 1.
Interesting. So the entire life cycle of the project means we would revise the permitting process from when you pull the first permit to start a project until the last guy walks out from the permits office with
The last CO.
the last CO.
Well, the question that we had was, is there any development in Falls Church
It has not happened.
that has not happened because of the permitting process?
Right.
I mean, I think certain communities, developers have walked away because it's been too difficult to build
It's a bad
high-speed
reputation.
rail or something like that. But is that the case in Falls Church? Have we lost?
Gary would be the.
Very-
No, we haven't.
There's been a fair
I mean,
amount.
people will rattle their chains at
Exactly.
points
It would be
and,
frustrating.
send up flares and that'll get our attention, but.
I guess the question would be, has anybody decided not to build something in Falls Church because of the permitting process that somebody else had? Like, I don't know if it's going to stop.
And that's where nobody has the data on because
Yeah, right.
what we do have, because we have data and confirmation, however informal, that a lot of experiences are unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
And when that happens enough, the word spreads rather quickly between construction companies, land use attorneys, brokers, you name it.
Yeah.
And you can't control that once it's out
your
there.
reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's almost unquantifiable, the impact that it has of how many lost opportunities we had once that type of message spreads.
Yeah. That's a good sign.
There's a-
And why
there's a-
would we want to have bad, like, if that's the reputation, like, why wouldn't we want to fix it?
Do we know that's the reputation?
I mean, a lot of anecdotal that I've seen over the years is they love coming to Falls Church versus the bigger jurisdictions because it takes so much longer and so much, they don't get a face-to-face, they can't get access to staff, they can't kind of finish, what they're doing, and so they really prefer Falls Church over the big localities, I've heard that consistently. I mean, they may be hiccups and there may be times, but I know our permit people, their view of, their lens is, what can I do to help you get done? I mean, when the inspectors and so forth, they don't just fail you and say, go figure it out. They fail you and say, you need to do 1, 2, 3, come back when you're ready, I'll help you.
Well, that's exactly. What happened to the jewelry people? I mean, there's an example of, people who might be out complaining about our process who never managed to get anything in front of us that was actionable.
Yeah, well, that, I mean,
I think that's a totally different issue. I think that was, their own team wasn't even coordinated. They didn't know from
but when
one
they're going,
discipline to the
I
next
think you're
how
completely right.
to answer
But
that
when they're going out
question.
into the community, they're not saying, you know what, we really didn't have a very good engineer on our project. They're saying that SOB and permits was difficult about our stormwater runoff. Right? I mean, that's what they say.
Sure.
And that's not,
There's two sides to every coin.
that's not true. I mean, find me an entrepreneur who says about a government official, you know, you've got a point there. I think we need to take more time. I mean, the very nature of people who go into business is often, you know, not keen on the obstacles that bureaucracies are required to uphold.
And I think the staff was trying to help them through that.
We've been over backwards. We made it, our goal was to help them, and they were just so dysfunctional on their side. I mean, I had a call 2 months into it from Fairfax County Board of Supervisors office, where the owner lived there and had contacted the supervisor. His number two is calling me and grilling me for an hour on the phone, all these questions, and I'm just like, yeah, it was just, no, they need to do this, and it's very simple. It's 1, 2, 3, and he was writing it all down. He kept asking me all, and I said, you just need to do this, and they know, here's a checklist. But no, you guys saw it firsthand. They were just dysfunctional on their side, and believe me, we made a lot of effort to move them along, and it's still not approved because they haven't posted their bonds.
But in terms of residential permitting, you do hear anecdotal and, not made up stories about people who are trying to make additions on their house or whatever, who feel like, the permits counter could be open longer hours or not closed on Thursdays or whatever their machine is. And, it doesn't take too many stories like that being passed around at PTA meetings before permits gets a reputation that, they're difficult to work with. And dealing with that is a challenge.
Yeah. So I'm hearing both groups identified some complexities and challenges, some of these recommendations. I thought it was a good exercise, good to talk through these. Thank you for bringing it to us, Bob. I hope that was good conversation that you all had. We did one more conversation, I think, that we need to have. The council requested that we answer 2 questions. There's a survey, so I think we're responding as a group. The first question was, what are the most important priorities for the City of Falls Church? And then the second question is, why are these priorities important to our community? A little broad. I don't think we need to write a novel, but what's top of mind? I think affordable housing continues to be a priority. Anything else on anybody's list?
I think updating the comp plan, the land use chapter, because that's and the vision chapter, because that's going to guide. I know it's already on the work plan, but I think that's the most important thing from a planning perspective.
I'd put implementing the bike plan on the list personally.
Just the implementation in general, right? Because since we're in this kind of quiet period as far as new applications go, seems like this is the opportunity to focus on implementing the plans that we do have. So whether it's the bicycle plan, the energy plans, those are the ones that kind of have an interest to me, but there's obviously plenty of others. As opposed to coming up with a whole lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add that I don't think we've talked about is effort on maintaining existing businesses. We've sort of been going so fast down the track of building new and opening new businesses. We need to spend some effort. There used to be a program where we recognized businesses that had been here for, pick a number, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It was not a big thing, they'd get a plaque or whatever, but it was a way for the city to say we appreciate not only businesses that come here, but businesses that stay here. And I sense that there's some anxiety in some of the existing businesses that they don't get the attention that the new shiny objects are getting. And I don't know how that translates into policy, except I would like somebody, chamber or somebody, to take the responsibility for a recognition program to keep existing businesses in the spotlight.
I would add on top of that, and I don't know if it's a city council priority type of thing, but a way to create community type events that bring people towards businesses and bring people towards locations that are having, like, Watch Night's got the big news, but like there's lots of things we could be doing around high school events, around make a block party on Broad Street, like, you know, pub crawls, things like that that could bring people out, give people a reason to coalesce, meet neighbors, build community, and support local businesses. It doesn't always have to be on Broad, right? Like it can be, there are lots of places, like especially over near where the Dunkin' Donuts is, there's a bunch of restaurants over there. There's a bunch of restaurants down Washington. There's a lot of opportunities to bring people together. But community building, especially now, and supporting and bringing people towards businesses feels like an opportunity.
Yeah.
Are there other sort of like infrastructure things that we think are?
Just getting back to your first comment, which I think is a good one. I would break up affordable housing and affordability of housing as two separate categories. One being sort of government-run programs based on AMI, and the other one is general controlling market forces to make things more affordable.
Lots of discussions about like sewer capacities. I know sanitary sewer, like master plan is on the roadmap. Do we see that as a big priority? I know that's.
I do, because it ties into how we want to grow and all the development that we're looking to do, including if we're talking about upsizing single-family residential areas. I don't think we have the infrastructure to do that. And I would not want to create policy when we don't know if we can actually achieve it.
So long-term infrastructure planning.
Yeah. I mean, that goes to sanitary, it goes to storm, it goes to tree canopy, right? Like when you're starting to talk about all these other policies to build more in areas that aren't as dense, I think we need to really think about all that other infrastructure that's there serving a purpose.
Yeah, having an effective response to the persistent question, you know, how is this project going to pay for itself in terms of stormwater management, sewers?
Yeah.
You know, that's as recently as our discussion about the Park Avenue townhouses. You know, the media coverage of that is, you know, Duncan supports it and has no way of paying for all the costs that are associated with it, which is, you know, that's a criticism that's out there on any project. And it does require, I mean, the manager's response is usually, well, we've built an escalator into our utilities taxes to provide funds to boost our infrastructure. You know, that's good enough for me, but it's not good enough for the public, or certain elements of the public.
Certain elements of the public.
Well, the public also needs to understand, I mean, actually in Virginia, you know, we're prohibited from having like an adequate public facilities ordinance in some parts of the country. You know, developers have to show that they, you know, there's adequate infrastructure or they have to pay for it. You know, here it's not how it works. You know, we get contributions in some cases, but yeah, I mean, it's up to the local municipalities to plan for that and, you know, use the revenue to help offset the extra costs, you know. So, but it's, yeah, you're actually, yeah, we can't, like, for example, you can't outright deny an application because, you know, it appears there's not currently adequate, you know, sewer water capacity.
That's a very important thing for the public.
Yeah, to know, right. I mean, it's one thing if you're not in a sewer service area, that's not the case here, the whole city's in a sewer service area. We don't have any septic, but,
And I presume the Dillon Rule would prevent us from enacting
right,
such.
I believe, right, it's actually prohibited. Planners, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain that there's no, you cannot have like what's called an adequate public facilities ordinance. In some parts of the country, that's common, but we were not allowed to do that. So we rely on other ways to offset that, whether it's through the voluntary concessions, or and things of that nature, or the revenue you get to help offset that. I mean, obviously, if there's direct impacts on like road infrastructure, you can require that, but like not sewer and water. And of course, our sewer system, we're part of a regional, Alexandria's plant or whatever we use, and so it's like we're sharing that capacity, and we pay for our gallonage allotment. And I don't know, it's complicated, that whole business, but any event, yeah, it is important that people know that we're limited in what we can do.
All right, so I've got 6 items. I want to check in on the sort of like ranking of these items. So we have affordable housing. Does everybody agree that that's kind of the primary issue still? Is that like a number 1 for the group?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, no pushback.
We also have plan implementation. So whether it's the bicycle plan, the environmental plans that we
Energy plans.
energy plans. ADA transition plans. We also have the updates of the land use and vision chapter. Is everybody on board with that being on the list?
Well, there's a little bit of one is a sort of an objective, and the other one is a document towards that objective, right?
Yeah, I see what you
I
mean.
don't know if that's a big deal or not, but
So
kind of 2 different categories
yeah.
of things.
I think if one gets touched, I think inevitably we have 1 or 2 others that we need to revisit. There's some redundancy between plans. And I think if you update the land use chapter, you are inevitably creating a new vision, and therefore you wouldn't be able to just maintain the old document as is. So I think the minute we're touching the land use chapter, we likely would be obligated to update the vision chapter as well.
So we want
I know,
something
but
broader.
we're saying like there's a affordability, housing affordability issue.
Nests within that.
And
But you're
that-
within that umbrella. I got you.
And then there is a writing of a document. They're 2 different, in my mind, they're 2 different beasts,
So is it sort of like modernizing the comprehensive plan or updating the comprehensive plan chapter, something broader like that?
Well, maybe I'm.
I don't know that
maybe
it's
I'm
like a
looking at-
community-
Maybe it's not, maybe it's.
I mean, it's a big deal for
distinction.
us, but is it, I think the question is about like, what are the issues facing the community? So I think questions about land use might be,
I think there's community involvement in that, and people are going to want to have a say in that this year, but
it's not really like an issue challenging the community. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
big conversation we're gonna have. Yeah.
And maybe I'm.
maybe put it like midway down the list. I mean, maybe it's not the most important, but I think it is pretty.
No, it's definitely an important
impactful.
conversation.
I think it's
just-
very important, but.
It's like an apples and oranges thing, I think is what
I
Bob
think
is
it's an
saying.
apples and oranges thing. And maybe I'm reading too much into the list.
Yeah, that's okay. And then I also heard supporting existing businesses from Phil.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty important.
Okay. Community events.
I think that's pretty important.
And it fits under supporting.
Kind of
That's part of it.
Yeah.
part of it,
And
yeah.
that, those, maybe we
Those
can
can
combine
be
those two.
combined.
So again, then we got 5. And then the last is sort of long-term infrastructure planning.
That's pretty
Sanitary sewer
important.
master plan, tree canopy, roads and paving,
I think that's pretty
paving
important.
plan. Yeah. Okay.
That's like close to the top.
Yes. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand.
Sorry. No, please ignore.
Okay.
Which of those includes the discussion about zoning for permitting daycare as a allowed use?
Oh, the B2, like commercial.
Yeah. Does that nest in
Well,
something?
I think that's in the land use.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
might call that out particularly just because I think that's a community need that we should try to meet.
All right, and then part two of this question is, why are these things important? I don't know if we want to ask about them. We're going through each one of these and justifying why we think it's important, or if it's sort of like a comprehensive why. Any insight from you, Art, on the origin of these questions?
Just together, taken together, they all help fulfill the 2040 vision as articulated by the city
So
council.
these questions kind of originated from a consultant
I see.
to some
Okay.
degree. The city hired a consultant who facilitates these sorts of meetings, so it's very helpful, and they're coming in, I think, some of the source of that. Also, I can't give you complete background on it because this all originated before I joined the council.
Yeah.
I keep hitting those, but
That'll happen.
in fact, I just got an email because one of their next steps is the consultant wants to talk to each of the council members individually, which is all very useful. And they're going to take all of the input they're getting from all the boards and commissions and kind of consolidate it and merge it. And some of the feedback I'm hearing here, I think I may have heard from some of the other boards and commissions as well. I think there's some common themes that will pop up. And so they'll bring that and help facilitate us working through it all. We're going to get a document this big of read aheads, you know.
And a heck of a Saturday you'll spend.
I don't think they scheduled it long.
Jack, can you remind me how we are submitting this? There's a survey, like, is there an actual like survey form that we're supposed to be filling out?
I haven't seen the survey. I know the mayor was here talking about it, so these questions, you just reading it, that was the second time now that I've
You've seen them.
heard them.
Okay. All
So
right.
I took notes, so I think this discussion is really going to help inform,
Okay,
in the...
so we don't need to take any formal action to like submit.
No, I mean, not for the questionnaire. I think, again, these conversations are what, I was looking for to fill in the blanks for the annual report in terms of what the planning commission is going to recommend for the council's work plan.
Okay.
So we can either
Include that.
shore those up if we want to make more specific recommendations for council's work plan, or when we get to the annual report part, I've put all the notes, I've taken those 6 points that were talked about here, that we can take some off if they're too broad for the annual report, or make them more specific if...
I think we were going to combine supporting existing businesses and community events. Sort
Okay.
of, hosting or planning community events. I'm not sure what the verb there is. And then I would vote, so we're kind of at 5. I would vote to elevate the long-term infrastructure planning, maybe to number 2 after affordable housing.
Yeah.
And then 3,
So should
plan
you-
implementation.
Again, in this apples and oranges, should you call it long-term infrastructure resilience? Like, that's the goal that we're shooting for. We're not shooting
It's not
for the
just
point.
resilience, though, because that implies it's just related to climate change or, I think it's really to accommodate, we
Plan
should
for
be.
growth in the
Plan for
future.
growth, that we're not overtaxing our aging infrastructure, right? So that, because, there are neighborhoods that are tapped out on their infrastructure. I'm absolutely positive of that. And I think the city needs to really study that, to understand how do we prioritize what we're going to do. Are there voluntary concessions for projects that are coming up that we could tie that into, right? So that at least we're more focused about those voluntary concessions asks.
All right, so Jack has our list. I see we're like an hour behind schedule. I'm sorry, y'all. So ambitious.
It's worth it.
It was worth. I hope it was worth it for everyone.
Well, I'm going to get back.
We do have a few action items tonight. So one of them I think is approving the annual report to council. So you're going to incorporate these priorities, recommendations, Jack. And
Yeah.
I think we reviewed the annual report in work session. So do we need to take a vote to sort of approve that document with these additions of these priorities?
Yeah. I can bring it up real quick.
Okay.
So, the annual report, there were a couple, amendments, edits that were mentioned at the last work session, so those have been made, particularly the speaker series paragraph was removed since there were none, and then a paragraph was added describing the changes to the state, or to the Virginia legislation around site plan authority and subdivisions. And so that was a good note. That context was added as a major development for the Planning Commission this year. And then let me pull up the Word version of the annual report, if there's any kind of real-time changes to the recommendations, because again, that would be the last thing I just want to capture.
How many layers of
Okay,
team
Maeve.
do you have to go?
It's a labyrinth, yeah.
What's impressive is that your brain is.
That he knows his
tracking
way.
Exactly, that you can follow the crumbs.
You got your
Yeah.
own page.
Oh, God, stop.
It's all the pictures.
Write it down.
At least the kids will know where I was someday.
Your alibi's good.
You don't want to know when I got my whole one picture of me on group. It's awful.
It was awful. It was fine. Your pictures are good. They're good pictures.
College yearbook, eating contest.
Oh, that one. Oh, that's different. Yeah, no, done. Yeah, I've got a picture of me in 1979. I look like Charles Manson.
It was bad.
Beard and hair. It's scary.
I can't even visualize that.
This was the list of things that I heard discussed in the council questionnaire. Again, those were, what the planning commission was talking about was what the city council's priorities might be, or in the commission's view, what those were. But I don't know if that, I think now the discussion is that what you want to include in your annual report as recommendations to the city council to include in their work plans for calendar years 2026 to 2027? Or do you want to be more specific or less?
I think we were bumping up, like, are you doing that in order of priority?
We can specify that there's a priority list.
Specify that, or?
I think Virginia Village is already on the roadmap, so I don't know, do we want to do affordable housing and housing affordability? I think Bob rightly flagged those
think
as
they
two
could be,
different
yeah.
things.
They could be in the same, yeah, there you go.
I think it's fine. Do we want to make it a little broader though, like the title recommendations for next council, for priorities for next council work plans? I mean, like, I don't know that we need to recommend specific concrete projects in this list if we want to make it jibe with the sort of survey question discussion that we just had.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I was thinking that was the survey response.
Can we make it recommended priorities for next council work plan?
The title, sorry, or the?
That, just recommendations
Just
just make it recommended priorities, just to be clear that it's not like specific products or projects. And then I think the second one was long-term, after affordability is sort of long-term infrastructure planning. Sanitary sewer, I mean, if we want to include things in parentheses like sanitary sewer master plan, stormwater projects, tree canopy, that's already on the agenda, paving plan. Those are examples of the kinds of things.
Sanitary sewer master
Yeah.
plan.
Stormwater management.
Stormwater management.
plan or just like that?
We already have a stormwater management plan, don't we?
Is it more like
Am I
kind of a
dreaming?
survey?
Maybe a little old.
Yeah. We can, or update plan slash.
Old is relative.
So is the sewer system.
Tree canopy
Yeah.
and, tree canopy ordinance
Stormwater
and, paving plan.
6, 7 years old.
Does that include sidewalks, paving plan? Does paving plan include sidewalks?
Might be missing links.
Yeah, missing links, yeah,
Want to shout that out?
yeah.
Actually, sidewalks is one of those question marks because it's very fragmented.
And then I think we could say updates to land use and vision community character comprehensive plan chapters. I think we might prioritize the idea of plan implementation above that, the bicycle master plan, the energy plans.
Above this
Just
implementation?
as, yeah.
Was it bicycle master plan?
Bicycle master plan, what are the acronyms?
Energy plans,
And energy plans.
if you want to put GOEAP and CEAP in parentheses.
MEEP? Is it not CC MEEP?
I think energy
No, that's
plans.
MEAP,
previous.
that's old.
Energy plan works for me.
Energy plans.
I think everybody will know what
Yeah,
we're
okay.
talking about.
And then,
You can delete the lower ped slash bike plan.
yeah, I think you combine that well. You can delete sanitary sewer, that's captured in the long-term infrastructure planning.
Just to quibble over existing businesses supporting, the word hosting sounds a little strong. My impression is we're encouraging businesses.
Enabling,
Facility, the city will help facilitate, but we're not trying to
or
get into
encouraging,
I'm
maybe?
not trying to get into the theme park events business more than we already are.
Yeah,
And we're encouraging and helping businesses.
you can cut that community energy line too, Jack. And then,
Did you spell it?
daycare uses is pretty,
Oh, right there.
specific
It should be more generic,
on this
right?
list.
Yeah, but it still is.
What do we say about, do we want more daycare uses? in B2?
I think it's evaluate uses in B2 commercial
Is that a
districts.
burning issue?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
maybe, I don't have kids in daycare, but my impression is that in the demographic that needs that service.
Especially since the daycares that we voted for got,
There's some question, there may be some limitations and things on there because of the transportation issues around pickup and drop off, that there may need to be some special,
Accommodations, maybe.
yeah. Pickup and drop off.
Can we make it more generic, like evaluate B2 commercial uses?
Such as daycare.
Evaluate and update.
I'm pushing for, we're specific enough on some of the other things that I'm pushing.
I'll put EG daycares.
It is a balance. I mean,
Yeah,
daycare
that's
uses
fine.
are not,
PG.
they don't really enliven sort of the public realm. I mean, there's reasons why, daycare uses aren't always
Well, they don't make
great
a lot.
everywhere in a business district.
They're perceived as
If
not
you
making
want
a
to put
lot
in
of money.
parens, Jack, like,
Right, and they,
EG,
again,
But
they
they
daycares.
They
provide
provide
a service, but a lot of things provide a service, but it doesn't always mean it's right in every spot.
Okay, is that
Do you want to
everything?
limit that line to B2?
Sorry?
Do you want to limit that line to B2?
I think that's sort of what the discussion has been, but if you want to make it more broad to commercial districts,
Yeah, I don't know.
Just evaluate, well, it's fine, I don't want to argue about it, but evaluate the list of like permitted uses and update, if necessary to meet kind of the market, but, it still has to make sense. I mean, there's some uses that might locate there if they were allowed, but we might not like what that generates.
That also kind of touches on your, on the cannabis potential.
Cannabis, vape shops,
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
your kinds of
Brett.
clinics and things. I'm just saying, it's like, it's a different kind of use, depends what we're going for. It doesn't generate a lot of lively activity, it just kind of,
About keeping parents going to daycare. What are we talking about here? We're just trying to put places for parents to drop their kids off.
We have a member daycare. I don't know.
Don't make
Daycare
this
is-
more difficult than it is.
We have a member daycare in the city and nearby.
Distance between the two becomes.
All right, that works, Jack. Thank you.
Preschools.
I don't know what's gonna come out.
All right, does this list look good? This is gonna go to council. I presume I'll present to
Can I ask
council.
a question? So we just passed an affordable housing policy. Should we call it affordable housing and housing affordability implementation? Or-
Well, maybe that's in the implementation of the plans, right? Bicycle master plan, energy plan, affordable housing policy. I mean,
I don't mean to
it's
get
not
too
really a
cute with the
plan,
words.
It's a policy.
If
Yeah.
council hears the ideas, I think that's more important.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not going to obsess about every phrase we use. I wish they would, but that's not likely to happen. It's not going to get delusions of grandeur here.
All right. Are we happy? Yeah?
I think so.
Do we need to vote on this? Jack?
Yeah, if you would, just to button it up. And it could be an all in favor vote, after someone makes a motion and with a second.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the 2025 Planning Commission Annual Report to City Council as drafted.
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work on that, Jack. And then we also need to approve the rules of procedure remote participation policy. We reviewed these last time. Any other questions, changes? If not, motion to approve.
So moved. Madam Chair.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you. All right, that brings us to information items, a little over an hour late. Sorry, guys. Any commissioner reports? Everybody's too tired. Director's report?
Ribbon cutting at Stratford, great event.
Oh, sorry, Phil's got something.
Well, Tim, Hart, ribbon cutting at Stratford, great event.
That was one of our last site plans, too.
That's
It was
right.
Yeah,
very,
that's right.
It was very enriching to see that
Tim was
all the
on
way
board
through to
from
the
beginning
finish.
to
I
end.
love all the bike parking.
Some of
I've seen
those-
so many bikes
some of those
there,
curb cuts.
too. She's great.
Wait till the summer. It's gonna be
In fact, I rode my
Probably
bike to
gonna
the ribbon
complain about
cutting.
that.
Except for those curb cuts, though. Watch out for those curb cuts. Those curb cuts to nowhere.
Park on foot.
Curb cuts.
I gotta-
Well,
I gotta
it's
complain about
easy
the
to bring
sign
your bike
tonight.
up out of the
That's
seat.
true.
I appreciate
I
it.
drove by with my wife and I said, brand new restaurant here, and she looks at the Stratford Motor Hotel sign.
Yeah.
And that's all it said. There was
Yeah.
nothing about a restaurant.
Yeah.
How long until the Broaddale Village puts
I
up
know,
some
but
really stern
she was
don't
like,
park here
"Where's the
signs?
restaurant?"
That's going to come any second.
Could be.
Yeah,
Because
sometime this
people were-
spring when everybody's trying to get
Because
in
people
there.
already were parking there for the, I think, the last weekend.
they-
People were parking in
they'll tell
Broaddale.
you.
No, I know.
They'll tell you.
But I'm saying that right now, like along that frontage, there's no specific
Yeah.
signage warning
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and
Like
it's easy to walk right.
North side
that
social.
will
West
happen.
side.
If it hasn't already happened, I've been out there a
Yeah.
couple days.
Or all over the Christian Science reading.
That too.
Where's the Christian Science?
Good old Christian Science reading.
Hanging out at Zoya's, parking at Zoya's.
That's why.
Any
Parking.
director's update?
The only thing for your awareness, I understand that the city manager will provide a very brief update as part of his manager's reports at the January 26th regular council meeting regarding like kind of where we are, where we're going with Virginia Village. One of several many discussions we'll have, but every now and then we get some questions about what the updates are, the status. So late January is when we anticipate working with the manager's office to share what we've been doing since the November work session, and then the degree to which we can highlight next steps and process. So
Great,
just
thank
putting a
you.
plug in for that.
All right. No correspondence? Okay. We are adjourned. 1 hour late. Apologies again.
You almost
Time
got us
flies.
back on track.
I tried.
At least we started at 6:30.
Yeah.
7:30.
Yeah.
6:30.
Thanks for dinner, we appreciate
Yeah.
dinner.
Thank you very much.